Hello, everybody. Hello and welcome. It is I, Trooper SJP, and this is the Academic Foxhole, and it is Console Saturday, and we are playing Heaven's Vault. Could you hold on one second? Hold on. Excuse me. Oh, oh, oh. Hi, it's me. I'm back. So, you know, right before we started, I just had to unplug it and plug it back in again, and now it's working. So we're fine. I was, uh, when you're gonna go live and then your Elgato Stream Pedal is just not working, and you're like, "What's that about?" And then you think, "But what if we need to have a Wilhelm scream today?" And we didn't have one. That would be tragic. My point is, I fixed it. How's everybody doing? How are you? Hello. Uh, we're playing Heaven's Vault today, which we haven't played in a month, which is terrible. But I really want to see if we can finish it before I leave. Also, I just I was just reminded. Had to make a note for myself because I care about y'all. Okay, hi. What's happening? Uh, we're playing Heaven's Vault. I'm yearning for the mines. Also, Grady's like, that was a short stream. Well, I just had to turn things on and turn it off again. Is what I had to do. Max is like, what is happening? I had to. Anyway, Grady says, I don't think I've ever seen the backside of Trooper before. So this is all new to me. How do you know it was my backside? How do you know that was even me? What if it wasn't even me? What if it was someone else? What if what looked like my backside was not even my backside? Mm-hmm. 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 Wait, Leaf, where are you going? Oh, I am currently in Seattle on a research leave, and my research leave ends when the semester was only for one semester, and so I've got to go back to Massachusetts, and I will be driving back to Massachusetts January 2nd, right after the New Year's. So, and that'll be on the road for like 10 days, 8 days, 7 days, 8 days, 7 days, one hopes. And then the semester will start. So, uh, I will be dark. I will be not streaming for 2 weeks, probably. Uh, I am AI. What if I am AI? What if it was Testacolis? It is the long drive. It will be. Um, that's all. It was, no, it's. Am I taking the south route this time? No, I'm going to try to take the northern route again. I'm gonna try. And I actually have to go and book my hotel rooms. So I've already reserved the van, the moving van, but I have to book those. Yeah, I've gotta. I need to go book those motels. And I have to remember This time, do not book a murder hotel like I did last time, because that was pretty awkward, and we just don't need to do that. So no murder hotels. I'll have to just make sure I do a Yelp review search this time so I catch the uh all of the if there are any murder motel reviews, make sure I see them and not book that one. Yeah. Oh, Nugget. I'm driving back across the country, and when I drove from Massachusetts to Seattle, um, from Boston to Seattle, uh, the last time when I drove here this way, when I got to Fargo, the motel that I got, I I drove into the motel, had a kind of a weird vibe when I was parking, like, oh, I should probably, because the only place I could actually park the van was like on the side of the motel. And I thought, oh, I just had a bad feeling. I was like, yeah, I should probably see if I can maybe fit this van at the front of the motel. And then I walked into the motel and there was nobody there, but there was a sign talking about trafficking, human trafficking. And then the person who was there then showed up, and like I checked in, and then I went to the second floor, and then I went to my room, and there was like a little sign inside saying, remember, if anything is stolen, that's kind of on you, and also you should make sure you lock all three locks of the door. And I was like, hmm. And then I looked at the motel room and I thought, this is the kind of place where you get murdered. So I just had a really bad feeling about it. So I decided to look online for some online reviews, and everyone's like, this is the kind of place you get murdered. And I was like, hmm. So I immediately booked a new hotel room somewhere else, and I went down to the front desk like 7 minutes after I walked in, and I said, hey, I'd like to check out now. And the person at the front desk said, oh, okay. And then just checked me out. Didn't ask me why or if I was worried about the murder hotel or anything like that. And yeah, so I was just like, ooh. Anyway, so I'm gonna just make sure I don't book that place again on my way back. That's all. That is all I'm good. That's all I'm gonna say about that one. Um, and yeah, so that was yeah. Wait, what? You don't want to IRL stream your drive? Hey, if I have some time, I will. Um, yeah. Hey, Artie. Artie's like, I hope you're doing well. Well, I am. I just think about all the things I have to do. I'm like, oh no. Grinny just says, listen, I'm having an awful, really awful day. Don't mess with me and my fragile brain. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to do that. Let's see. What do we have now? Okay. Every once in a while, the murder hotel just told this story. And Artie's watching Stargate. Oh, yay. Stargate's good. Murder hotel? I need context, but also, I don't know if I want it. Yeah, this. See, but as Krillin notes, murder hotels are cheap. They are. And Vols is like, I know about haunted hotels. Instead, murder hotels? Yeah. And Crow says, I swear a murder hotel is a hotel where a murder happened, which is more than you think. Uh, yeah. Or the kind of place you think a murder will happen, and it might be you. Like, it's like, oh, I've got to start my rewatch soon. Or it's like, Fargo. Makes sense. Fargo's a creepy place if the TV says anything. Yeah, I didn't think it would be it's one of those places like there are probably bed bugs here, and I'm probably there was also a little bit more to the story that I didn't tell you, but it wasn't just vibes. I mean, it also was vibes, but it wasn't just vibes. Artist says, at least you were able to both check out and leave. I know, because the Hotel California you can't. So, um there so the other part about the hotel that I didn't finish telling you, that I didn't mention, but it was actually there. Um so when I drove in, right? Okay, a couple things. Just tell you a couple things that I did not share the first time with the story. I will elaborate. So you know how motels are often in clusters, right? Like you go off the highway, and there's usually like a little cluster of motels. And when I pulled off the highway to get to the cluster of motels, there were no other motels around this motel. It was all by itself, and, and the place that it was at was kind of like there wasn't like cheap gas, cheap food place, people's homes. It was just kind of like a sort of vaguely industrial, right? And I was like, but it was off the highway, so it wasn't like we were, in a wharf or anything like that. But it just there weren't like other motels around, which was a little bit weird. Um, little bit weird. And then when I pull in, right, and I come around and I come to a place where I can sort of park the moving van. The moving van, I was supposed to get a van itself, but the 12-footer, right? Or 11-foot van, 10-foot van? The 10-foot van, I guess. But they only had the 10-foot truck instead. So I was like, well, I guess that's what I got. Anyhow, so I pull in, and when I pull in, there is a car that is also in that. So the motel is long, and it's all the parking is in front of the motel, but on the side there are like two or three little parking spots on the side, and I went to that one because they were longer, and I did because the front was like I wasn't certain there'd be enough like clearance for the van for the front part because it was not a very deep it wasn't a parking lot that had parking lots slots on both sides, only the front side. So it was like, parking lot slots in the front, but none on the. So there was basically didn't feel like there was enough clearance space. So when I parked on the side, but when I parked on the side, there was a car there, and there were people who were smoking and like in the car, sort of around the car, and they had a vibe. And the vibe was I'm gonna catch up on chat. Max says we went to a con in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I made the mistake of letting the guy I was with make the reservations. When we got to by the month rooms hotel, they didn't have our reservations but could give us a room. I should have left then. We took the room. You could hear the noises through the vents from other people, and there was mold growing on the ceiling. Yeah, that's no good. Hopes, yeah, significantly sketchy. Yeah. Milsell's just like, so that happens more often in this motel. I feel like it. So Max says, have you heard there's a new Stargate coming out allegedly? Oh, I hadn't heard that actually. Artie says, what will probably help Gritty is the name game. Yes, I see that, and I am going to see the name game for Gritty as a matter of fact, and also Trig, and just note that is going to happen because I see it. I see it. Volus says, rumor is there's a new Stargate coming to Prime Video. Oh, is not a reboot and is with the original creators. Oh, interesting. That's cool. Yes, the day game would definitely help me not feel so awful. Hint, hint, no, I'm totally gonna. I see it. I'm gonna sing it. We can keep trying together. I'm gonna do it. I'm getting caught up on chat. When I visited Gen Con in 2018, did you like it? I was at a Motel 6, or was it 7? Motel 6. It was in the middle of a truck stop, and the wiring was interesting by German standards. The water was boiling hot always, but it was cheap. Gritty's like drugs. They were doing drugs. So yes, Gritty, this was my vibe. This was the vibe that they were doing drugs, or oh, walk the dogs, Max. Yeah. So the vibe was that they were. The vibe was, okay. So yeah, yeah. Hey, Polly, how you doing? So yeah, I'm talking about the murder motel that I stayed at when I was driving here to Washington. So the vibe was Gritty, yes, that they had like I think one of them was like drinking a beer, and they were not teenagers. They were not like college students or teenagers who were like, let's go get a motel room. They were kind of they didn't look like they looked older than I think they were. They looked a little rough, and they were meth addicts, not math addicts, and they were kind of just hanging out in a way that felt a little weird. And so when I walked into walked around them and was walking towards the motel, I was like, I should probably go and like try to move the van because I don't like the fact that the van is not visible, right? Like if it were on the front of the motel, then like it would be more visible, but like the van was now like put on the side, it was a little bit less visible, and these people were a little bit strange. And then as I came in and I was walking up to the room, there were some other people kind of just loitering in this little motel in a way that made me think, Mm, so, when I checked the reviews, people were like, there was one review that said, if I get murdered, everyone needs to know that it happened at this motel. And people were like, yeah, no, everyone was like, no, this is a motel. This is not necessarily a motel that people who are driving through stop at. If you know what I'm saying? And I was like, yeah, I don't think I should stay at this motel. I just don't think, I think that I'm probably going to get bed bugs. And I just don't think this is a safe motel to stay at. So I, left. Which this is the first time I've ever done that, by the way. But I will say that my mother gave me advice when I was 4 years old. I was 4 years old when my mother said to me, she said, it's my mother. My mother's advice was, who was psychic, by the way. My mother said, if you ever feel uncomfortable or unsafe, or if you just have a bad feeling about any person or any place, just leave. You don't have to be polite. You don't have to make excuses. But if you ever get a bad feeling about someone or about a situation, just leave. And then she said to me, and she also said to me, and I remember I was 4, she said, if there's anybody that we know that you have a bad feeling about, you just tell me and we will never ever see them again. And I was 4. She just let me know. She's like, and she said, I won't even ask you why, but if there's anybody in our circle that you ever feel have a bad feeling about, you just tell me, and that will be it. And my mother was a very, very awesome person. And I remember a little bit later, she said, as like a, I was a bit older, she said, as an, like an expansion. My mother was psychic, right? And she says an expansion, she said, explaining how she interpreted being psychic. She said that, that she felt like we all have a good sense of people, like we are born with a sense of people, but we are told to not listen to that sense, that we are sort of convinced by society or politeness to not pay attention to those vibes, those feelings that we get. And I think for her, psychicness was not like, oh, I'm hearing ghosts or things like that, but more like just being really in tune with like your vibes with people. And she sort of she doesn't, I don't think she thought it was supernatural or in any kind of a way. I think she's just like, yeah, this is just actually normal to have like to have a sense about people. But we are just what she said was that we were just taught not to pay attention to it. And so she said to me, just remember, rest of your life, if ever you're in a situation where you just get a bad vibe about someone or a place or a situation, just leave. Just leave. And I have almost never had to do it. I've only done it. I've almost never had to do it, but that murder hotel was one time that I did it. There was one time in Germany that I did it, and there was one time this murder hotel was like a second time. I don't think it almost never happens, but that was a time I was like, no, this I cannot stay here. I'm okay, I'm out $40, but you know what? I'm out $40, that's fine. And so I left. Uh mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Uh Now I'm catching back up. Millsuch says, I love Gen Con, but now I would be way more efficient. I want to visit again, but I have my reservations of visiting the US at the moment, to be honest. That's fair. You know what? Give it a wait. Give it a wait. Uh, yeah, yeah. Granny says, I would have gone up to them and tried to join in, be as cringy as possible, see if I can freak them out. Yeah, I was like, I don't know. Uh, Artie says, we are on the lookouts for our associates who are stealing organs from one of the wombs. Yes. Yeah, yeah. It just kind of felt like, I'd wake up in a bathtub full of ice with no liver. You know what I'm saying? Uh Polygeek, oh yeah, what are these folks waiting for vibes? That's exactly the vibe. It was like, I don't know, I don't know what's yeah, no, it was just a bad vibe. Yeah, yeah. Them being the druggies, yeah, yeah, yeah. Folks, oh yeah, what are these fix? Yeah, yeah. Vola says, how come Chuck E. Cheese never made a home console? Charles Entertainment consoles roll off the tongues and they had games and such. Apparently, that's a good question. Uh, Artie's like, good advice. Krellin says, wise words. You can just leave. Good advice. And the thing is, Crown says, God, I wish my mother had said something like that to me. And the thing is, it's really good advice. And I don't think people tell, and remember, I was like 4 years old, and I knew it was true. Like, I knew that my mother would have just cut anybody out of our lives if I didn't like them. I knew that. And I will always, like, value my mother for that quite a lot. Polygeek says, good advice. As much as they can get crosswired at times, the pre-human lizard brain kept us alive for hundreds of thousands of years after all, right? Yeah, and you know what, though? The thing is, Polygeek, that I think that there was some studies that were done recently about this, saying that a lot of vibes are actually not vibes. They are, that we have been hardwired, right, to be able to pick up very, very subtle cues on people, that's actually, like, it's actually a thing. Mm-hmm. And Polygeek said, oh yeah, and specifically femfolks are absolutely 100%, right? And, oh, Polygeek, this makes me think about something. Don't let me forget movies. I'm getting caught up. Artie says, we are taught not to trust our instincts, right? And, apparently there was a study that said that people's instincts are apparently actually just really, really subtle and very, very minute visual clues that we have been evolutionarily taught to pay attention to, because danger, right? Nugget says, I'm a vibes person. If something feels off or strange, I'm out. I've learned to trust my gut over the years. It's important. It's important. Yeah, right. We're conditioned, Polygeek explains, conditioned to ignore our gut. Absolutely. Also about politeness, right? Empathetic is how I would describe your mother. Yeah. Yeah. Grinny says, dude, your mom sounds like such a cool lady. Oh, she was so cool. I always trust my instincts, even if they aren't always right. Yeah, being alive is more important than $40. This is very true. So guys, I've got to go show it. Okay, come back in a hot minute. So there's a thing about this, right? When my mother told me this advice, right? So to give you a little bit more context, besides me just being 4 years old, Krellin says, we're conditioned to ignore our gut because our current society is run by sociopaths and need us to ignore our instincts to let them be in charge. Yes. Yeah. And my mother, at that time, I was like 4, and my mother had gone to Japan, right, to work as a stripper for a year. And so I was living, when I was 3, with my godparents in the mountains in a shack with no electricity and no hot water. Mother had come and pick me back up when I was like about 4. She picked me up and she took me to San Francisco. And she was dating this guy. So my mom was a single mom, right? And let me see. So if I was 4, she was 22, 23 at the time. 23 probably. Well, maybe. Anyhow, so she was dating this guy who became my stepdad. And she introduced me to him, right? So I was meeting all these people that she had sort of met when she was in San Francisco before she can pick me up. And I remember she told me, she's like, if there's anybody you don't like, you just let me know. And I think that was also like it, and she made it very clear, it didn't matter who they were, right? Which she didn't say it so explicitly, but what she was saying is like, if you do not like my boyfriend, then he will not be my boyfriend, is what she was saying. And actually anybody else in the whole circle. And she meant it, right? And I appreciate that, right? Yeah. And Artie says, sadly, politeness has been used to maintain the status quo by those in power. It's true. And this actually made me think of the movie Get Out. The movie by Jordan Peele, the horror movie Get Out, where, he goes, I don't know if you've seen the movie, but in the movie, for those of you who do not know it, Grady says, Trooper, I'm going to be a trap for a second. Your life sounds so insanely interesting. And if you ever want your life documented, let me know because I'll write your biography. Hey, I've had a wild life. I'm going to tell you this. Polygeek says, I think I saw a neuroscientist say that we can now actually predict decisions up to 10 seconds ahead of our conscious decisions based on neurons firing using Fermi. So maybe that's part of the instinctive decision making, something pre-conscious but still brain-based. Yeah, basically that kind of a thing, right? There are all these like little micro things. Yes. So in the movie Get Out, if you haven't seen it, the setup is there's this black guy and he's got this white liberal girlfriend, and she's going to take him to meet her parents for the first time. And her parents live in upstate New York, I guess, or Connecticut, one of those kind of like more remote places. And so they drive up there. And when they get there, like her parents are good liberals, and it's a very fancy place in the kind of middle of nowhere, and it's very nice. And they're having this big party with all these kind of rich people, and um, it's off. Like everything is off. It's a little bit weird. It's a little bit off. It doesn't seem right. And but he doesn't want to be rude. He doesn't want to be impolite. There are these things that don't seem, and just there are these things that just don't seem right at all. There's a bad vibe, but he doesn't want to be rude, right? You know what I mean? Like he's meeting his girlfriend's parents. He doesn't want to be rude. Also, she drove and he didn't drive, so he can't actually leave not out in the middle of nowhere. But I was thinking to myself, and actually at one point in time, there's like there are two black people in the house, like who are both servants. And then there's this one black guy who's a guest at this party, and he like grabs the main character. He's like, "Get out!" Uh, and then he kind of like passes out or whatever. And he's told to get out, and just it's just a bad vibe, and he just doesn't want to be rude. You know what I mean? And it's bad. He should have listened to my mom, and he should have just said, "Leave." That's really what should have happened. He should have got out, but he didn't, and then it all went bad. That's how that movie goes. Um, yeah. Artie says, I mean, that is smart. They say that children should trust their instincts far more than adults do, as it hasn't been trained out of them yet. Yep. Um, this is gonna be a Midsummer kind of thing, isn't it? Yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't. It turned out bad. Grady's like, oh, I have seen this movie. That movie was real weird. So he should have left. But I remember thinking to myself, see, this is about the ways, like Polly talking about how like femme folks are sort of taught to not listen to their instincts, not to value politeness. And I think very often marginalized people are taught, and that marginalized could be you could be a femme folk, you could be of color, you could be neurodiverse, right? But I think a lot of marginalized folks are taught politeness, right? That you have to be polite in certain ways, and so you don't want to make a scene, and you should not. You should be polite, but that politeness in this movie, bad things happen. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's all I'm saying. Um, Crown says, if I recall correctly, the girlfriend knew it was up and had been a honeypot. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. And you didn't know that. You didn't realize that until like near the end, and you're like, oh no, this is really bad. Oh no. It's a good movie. I didn't know what to expect because I went in without having pre-knowledge. And I also saw it live, and I thought I knew what was going to happen in that movie. I was like, oh, okay, it's a horror movie. Yeah, I got it. Ooh, some surprises were there. Not like gory surprises. I don't think it was this. If I recall correctly, I don't think it was like super, super gory in that kind of a way. But ooh, creepy. It's good times. Uh, so him leaving him no way out was part of the plan. It was, right? That she was like, oh, I'll drive. And man, yeah. Yep. Artie's like, and by politeness, they really mean don't make those in power uncomfortable. Yep. Hey, BP, please inside. We were talking about my murder hotel and also Get Out. But I wanted to tell you because we brought it up that advice, right? My mother gave me that advice. Always trust your instincts that way. And I haven't had to do it often, but I have. She also said she gave me that advice from Toni Morrison. When people show you who you are, believe them. But she didn't say it that way. What she said was, what she actually said to me was, and this so there are these two other bits of advice, one for my mom and one for my stepdad, my dad. And I'm going to share them both with you. You're all grown up, so you maybe don't need it, but I'm going to just say it anyway to remind you. Uh, my mother also said, and this is one that I actually just really do need to be better at. My mom said, if somebody tells you that they're an asshole, you should believe them. And she said that people who are like, she said, there are people who are assholes who will not tell you they're assholes, but there are people who are assholes. Pardon my language, by the way. There are people who are assholes who will tell you they're assholes, and they do that so that when they start treating you badly, they can justify it by saying, well, I told you, right? And there are people who I have run into in my life who have been really great, And then they say one time after a time period, they're like, I just want you to know I'm a real asshole. I have a habit of really hurting my friends or doing this or doing that. And I'm like, no. But it was actually true every single time. So my mother always told me, if somebody tells you they're an asshole, you should just believe them. And that's a hard one for me. But well, it's not hard if I've just first met you. If I first meet you and you're like, I'm a jerk, I'll be like, probably are. But if I've known you for a while and you don't seem like a jerk, it's hard for me to buy that one. But it has been true every single time. And so that's one I always have to remember. Um, and then the other one, and this is like a really interesting one. It was from my dad. And it was one that it took me a while to understand what he meant because he also told me when I was younger, uh, like when I was like maybe 10 or 12, something like that. He gave me this advice and he told me this thing, and it took me a while to really understand it. And what he said was, um, people will often say who they are, but if you really want to know who somebody is, you have to look at their instincts, right? See what their instincts are. And he didn't mean judge people by their actions, not their words. That's not what he meant. I thought that's what he meant, but that actually isn't what he meant. Um, PB says, you knew who I was from the start, from the book of Dodging Accountability for Assholes. Yep, that's basically what mom was talking about, right? But my dad wasn't saying that you should judge people by their actions, not their words. That's actually not what he meant. What he actually meant was that it's not the actions, it's their instincts, right? So that people might do all of these good things. Those are actions too, right? But what he meant was you should see, like, when something happens, what is their first instinct? And he said, that's what you need to pay attention to. So, like, if somebody gets mad, what's their first instinct? Um, what are their instincts? And that is something that uh, it took me a while to really understand and really get what he meant by that. But there are times, and I was like, oh, this person's instinct, they don't do it all the time, but this person's instinct when they get stressed or when it's one of those moments is they do this thing. And my dad said that's the thing that you should pay attention to, and he was right about that one too. Both my mom and my dad were very perceptive beatniks and hippies, and they had good advice. They had good advice. Um, yeah. What is motivating those actions, right? Wow, wow. So that must be why someone chooses to be known as Rock. Mm. Polygeek, that first city can reel their worldview. I think that's exactly right, Polygeek. Right? Like, what? How are you? Right? What happens? Back for a bit, I missed another story, and you know what? This is proctologist. um, so this is actually interesting. So I will give you another piece of advice that my mother gave me. Remember, for context, my mother and my father, my stepdad, were not married for a really long time. And when they did get married, they didn't tell my sister and I. They just kind of got married secretly. We found out like a couple years later they had gotten married. And they only got married so that I could stay on my dad's health insurance, um, because the company stopped covering dependents unless you were married. I read a book about this actually. It's quite interesting. But anyway, but anyway, um, Alex says, now that said, I think it's important to look at instinct, but then also action, because there are a lot of wounded people who are working on healing. And that means first instinct and desired response can be very different for all. That is true. Um, oh, what it was a pretty messed up health insurance actually. They just want to keep people off the rolls. Polygeek, for me, what I think it is, I was thinking about what you're saying because I have not too unrecently been really hurt by somebody uh, whose instincts were bad instincts based because they were wounded people. Um, and the thing is, are you healing? You know what I mean? Like if you are on a journey of healing, then we're good. But if you are not, right? Or if you use that being wounded as an excuse to be able to get away with hurting people, iffy. So you have to like there's like that kind of like there's a kind of a like a bit of a dance, you know? I always have to try to find that right balance, I think. Uh Greedy says, I finally reached a point in my life where if things or people don't make me happy, I don't want it in my life. Life is way too short to worry about who likes me, who doesn't make or what doesn't make me happy. To quote Dr. Seuss, those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. Yeah, it's American health insurance. Yep. Yeah, it can be an explanation, but it is an excuse. Yeah, weaponized therapy, like polygeek. Weaponized therapy language and weaponized wounding are both real problems. And the thing is, like, I'm actually a very, what's the word, understanding person that way. Like, hey, I get that maybe you're working through something and all that. Like, that's cool. But I think there's like, sometimes people make excuses, uh, and their wounds are not actually good excuses for what they're doing, I think is the best way to put that. You know what I mean? Um, it's funny because I think about this is like okay, and this is something I don't have an answer for, right? I do not have an answer for this, but I was a kid. When I was a kid, I was bullied quite a lot. I was bullied really badly in school, and I remember thinking, like, why do bullies do that? Like, why are you just being mean to people? Do you know what I mean? Like, why? And later, when I was an adult, you hear people say like, "Oh, well, that kid, went on a rampage and killed people or hurt people or was mean or was terrible or was like just awful." And the excuse is like, "Well, he was bullied in school, and that's what happens when you're bullied. You just do that." And I was like, "I was bullied, and I don't do that." Um, like I ended up becoming hyper empathetic, I suppose, in some ways, rather than cruel. And I don't know what the difference is. Like, I don't know why some people, when they're hurt, decide to hurt other people, or that's what they do, and why some people hurt themselves, which is what I did. Um, I was hard on myself rather than other people. I got over that though, and I don't know why. I don't know why, but I just don't think that it is. I'm not saying it's a choice. That's not what I'm saying. Because I think when people hurt other people, I don't think that they're like consciously. Some people, but those people are sociopaths, right? I think some people. I don't think that people who hurt other people necessarily do it on purpose. I'm not saying that, but I do wonder sometimes what happened. Like, why? Why is it that some people they go to hurt others? Why is it when some people they go to hurt themselves, or what happens? Like, and again, I don't know the answer. I don't know if there is an answer, but it is always something that always sort of it always something that was a question, right? Because I do not doubt that the people who bullied me were themselves bullied or had terrible home lives or whatever the thing was, whatever the case might have been. And I just kind of wonder, like, what makes the difference? Like, why when two people have the same experience, why does one person go this way and the other person go that way? And I just don't know the answer to that, but it has been something that I've always found curious. I've always wondered about it, you know? Yeah. Um, Coming in late, says Drummer Boy, but the phrase bleeding on someone who didn't cut you seems appropriate, or getting bled on by somebody who didn't cut. Yeah, absolutely. Apologies for sure. I totally get that. And am much like you that way. Right? Max is like, there are a lot more sociopaths than there needs to be. Yeah. And again, they might be made, right? Uh, Granny says, "Oh my goodness, Trooper, I was bullied in school too, and I reached a point in like 10th grade, maybe where I realized literally every bully was just reusing the same insults and made life so much easier once I realized that." Yeah, and for me, I just um for me, I think it was like, I mean, look, I was just very stubborn. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was very stubborn in the sense that I was bullied, and I was told I was like ugly every day. Uh, and I think my Medusa was a nickname, all that kind of stuff, right? And I remember thinking, well, there was a lot of things I didn't understand at the time. I don't know if the people who were bullying me understood them either. Um, because that is just how life is. But I understood that not only was there, like, how do I put this? Uh, Bullies are notoriously stupid. Yeah. And I just remember thinking, okay, so I'm getting called ugly all the time, right? my parents were like, but you're not. And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. Parents, you're biased. But I remember thinking, well, okay, okay, sure. I'll just accept that. Um, I didn't think it mattered though that I was ugly because I figured like I'm a decent human being and I'm smart and I'm talented. I've got good things going on. That's fine. Um, but there was this thing where I remember some people would say things like, well, but you wouldn't be ugly if you just do X, Y, or Z. But yeah, yeah, exactly. Max is like, bullies are notoriously stupid, just like racist. Yeah. Grady's like, but it didn't stop the bullying, but it made it easier for me to realize that they were just saying these things to get a reaction. I didn't react. They got bored. They stopped. So my mom told me they were only also looking for reactions. So I just never reacted to them. They did not stop. But I didn't, they didn't get, I did not react to them. Um, um, Artie says, I'm rewatching Stranger Things for the final season. And yeah, that is definitely something they touch on. Yeah. And I remember thinking though, there was this moment, uh, all right. So for those, Artie was like, so for those who don't know, I'm trans, right? So back then I was a tomboy, and I think there were a bunch of things going on there, why I was being bullied the way I was. And I think what it was is that people were trying to say that I was not doing gender right and they couldn't figure out what was going on there. Um, but I remember there were these like this moment where there were these two girls and they were trying to be helpful, I think. They were sort of mean girls ish, but they were trying to be helpful. And they said, hey, um, I think that people wouldn't tease you so much if you didn't dress so masculinely. And I said, what are you talking about? Uh, what are you talking about? And they're like, well, I mean, like, if you dressed more feminine, I think that you wouldn't be teased so much. And I said, again, what are you talking about? And they said, well, I mean, look at you. You're wearing jeans and a t-shirt. And I said, yeah, but you're also wearing jeans and a t-shirt. And they said, right, it's just different when you wear it. And I was like, okay, well, you know what I mean? I was like, there's nothing I just don't know what it is people are talking about. I don't think I can do anything about this. Like, I don't think that I can do anything to make them stop bullying me. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Uh, and this is really, Artie, this is really what it is, right? Like, you could be acceptable if only you conform to our expectations, right? But I didn't even know what they were. And I remember at one point in time, somebody was like, I could do all these things to change myself and then people wouldn't bully me. And I remember thinking, but these people aren't even my friends though. Like these people are my bullies. Like these people are mean to me. Why would I change who I am? And I like who I am. Why would I change who I am to get them to stop bullying me when A, they probably won't, but B, even if they did stop bullying me, I would stop being who I am for people who I don't even know or like or don't even like me. Like they're not my friends. They're not invested in me. They're not gonna hang out with me. I don't think I would want them to hang out with me because they're mean. So why would I change everything about who I am for people who are mean? Like I just don't. So like I just didn't. And that was about the time I was like in middle school, right? When I discovered Shakespeare. And when I got to that point in Hamlet, right where uh Polonius says to his son, and remember to thine own self be true, for then thou canst be false to no man. And that phrase, to thine own self be true, became the thing that got me through all of that. I was like, you know what? No matter what happens, I'm going to be true to myself and honest with myself. So I'm not going to change who I am for other people. I'm going to be who I am. And even if I'm teased, even if I'm bullied, no matter what that is, right? I will know at least that I'm being honest, right? I'm going to be true to myself. And I made that decision when I was like 11 or 12 years old, and I never looked back. I never looked back. And so even though I was bullied and it was not great, I always knew that I was being true to myself. And that was really important. That was some, I think that like, again, I don't even know if it's true. I think that, look, if I had changed who I was in order to stop the bullying, I would have been doing harm to myself. Do you know what I'm saying to you? Like I would have twisted myself up into something that was really uncomfortable and terrible, and I would have been doing harm to myself for what? And so I didn't. I didn't change who I was. And that ended up being something that was really good. That kind of resilience, that kind of faith and trust in myself that, I got from my mom in the end. Um, that was really important. I think that that sort of being able to be true to who I am in the face of adversity has, in many ways has made me who I am today. It allowed me to do a lot of really difficult things that I didn't think I could do and survive a lot of difficult things because no matter what was happening, I always knew who I was and I was always true to myself. And that not everybody had that, You know what I'm saying? Uh, you know? Uh, yeah. And Max is like, yeah, why conform for police? Exactly. Why? Because they're not even my friends. Probably because, yeah, there seems to be this phase where kids go from default acceptance to heavy normative enforcement. Absolutely. I think they must be scared, right? Oh, Max Ryder says middle school is the worst. Middle school is the worst. People are like, oh, high school. No, no, no. High school is way less worse than middle school because in high school, at least you have some autonomy. But in middle school, you're just like, oh, middle school is the worst. Lunka says, please say the way you are. That's why I got sicker. And I'm going to be who, and of course, as a human being, I'm always changing, right? But I'm not going to be untrue to myself for, you know what I mean? Uh, Teaching middle school is even worse than that. I can't even imagine. I have to tell you something though, Max. By the way, I still have singing to do. One thing I'll tell you about teaching middle school is that I would not have gotten through middle school had I not had some really great teachers. My art teacher, uh, Ms. Langer was her name. Uh, and she got married, became Ms. Lee. But Ms. Langer, who was my art teacher, if it were not for her, I do not know how I would have gotten through middle school. Uh, she was my art teacher. She taught me perspective, 1 point, 2 point, and 3 point perspective. But she would let me and some of the other kids who were nerds, we were the nerds, rather than like eat lunch in the lunch round in the lunch playground, which was never a really great experience. She would let us just like eat in the art room. So we would like get our lunch, we would eat in the art room, and that was really great. And so like I can't imagine. I would never want to do it because it was so how horrible. But I really appreciate that. I had a middle school teacher who made a safe space. I will always appreciate her for that. Yeah. Max says, Greedy says, ugh, I hate gender conformity. Yes. I dress like a tomboy, which is a phrase I hate all the freaking time. And I can't say when people look down on me because of it. Yeah. Like, also, to get back to that moment when, like, I was being, like, told that I needed to, like, dress more femininely, but I was like, yeah, but I'm wearing the exact same clothes as you are. That all this is so arbitrary. It's just so arbitrary. Why is, like, it's just so silly. Do you know what I mean? It's so silly. That's what I have to say about that. Polygeek says, props to you for being able to see it and live that. Yeah, I didn't understand it at the time though, right? When I got older, I was like, oh, I see what was going on, right? I was gender nonconforming and I was not white in the middle of the 80s when that was just like, this was like the big hair, big shoulder pads, uh, lifestyle, like the 80s were very conformist, right? And of course, I hung out with the nonconformists. I hung out with the goth kids and all that stuff. And like we all got bullied for it, right? Basically, because there was such a. There's this thing that I wanted to say about this, which I think is super interesting, because once grunge hit in 1991, 92, I remember being so flummoxed because when I was so I graduated high school in 1990, right? Because when I was in high school, there were the popular kids and then there were the unpopular kids. And the unpopular kids tended to be the weirdos and the freaks and geeks, and they were teased and all that. And the popular kids were like, we're very popular and we're wearing designer clothes and all of this stuff. And then when grunge happened, all of my bullies, all of the popular kids, it became unpopular to be popular, if that makes any sense. So all the popular kids were all of a sudden into grunge. And they were like, oh yeah, we're super alternative. I was like, you are the most popular kids. Like, what are you even talking about? And something that I noticed from 1992-ish onwards is that it has become unpopular to be popular. That doesn't mean that there aren't popular kids. There are. There are still popular kids, but they just don't admit to being popular, but they still are. The college that I teach at is full of these kids who are all like quirky, but they were all clearly they were all like, yeah, in my school there were no popular kids. We were all just weirdos. It was like, you were the popular kid, weren't you? Interesting. But yeah, that kind of like cheerleader football hero kind of popular kid thing, I don't think is popular to be popular. That is not the popular way to be popular at the moment. You know what I'm saying? Do you know what I'm saying? Max says, okay, heading out to my own stream. Okay, I will see you there. Been starting early to get through GTA 4. I see you. I see you. Yes. Greeny says, yeah, I love your outlook on life, Trooper. Never ever change your beautiful smile. Thank you, thank you. Also, can I pretty please ask for a name game? I'm going to do it right now. This moment, as a matter of fact. Trig is like 13, 14-year-olds, although worse, they are. Polly says, non-sarcastic answer, because the illusion of belonging can feel more comfortable than the reality of loneliness. Yeah, Polygeek, and I think the thing what they don't understand is that you can be lonely in a crowd. And I think if I had been accepted by those bullies, but knowing that they hadn't actually accepted me, that they were accepting some fake me, that would have been so lonely. So lonely. It's lonelier to be accepted for who you aren't than to be not accepted for who you are, I think. Drummer Boy says, I think many aren't sure who they are. It's true. And they don't try to find out, either because of outside pressure or it's just easier to follow trends rather than being your weird self. Also, they may not realize they can be someone different, you know? Or maybe actually sometimes they just can't because their parents are really awful. Artie says, and people are still doing that. I know one of the femme presenting streamers gets comments occasionally, you know, you could get more views if you only dress more feminine. Like, that's terrible. Lunku was like, I was my worst self in middle school also. It's a rough time for everyone. It's such a terrible time. Roller's like, big shoulder pads equals overcompensation. Absolutely, especially when you have like shoulder pads in your t-shirt and in your sweater and in your jacket. So you're wearing like 3 layers of shoulder pads. Artie was like, it was Stranger Things. It's on my mind as I'm rewatching it. And Gritty says, it's always a nerd. I was always a nerd and I had nerdy friends that I still talk to today. And that is good. Riggs says, I was never really bullied, but I realized a few years ago that I only got compliments on how I looked when I was wearing something that made me feel uncomfortable. See, that's no good. So, the name game. The name game. Come on, everybody. I said, now let's play a game. I bet you I can make a rhyme out of anybody's name. The first letter of the name, I treat it like it wasn't there. And then a B or an F, on M will appear. And then I say bow at a B, then I say the name, then banana, fanner, and foe. Then I say the name again with an F, very plain. Then a fee, fi, and a mo. Then I say the name again with an M this time, and there isn't any name that I can rhyme. Gritty Mike, Grinny Mike, Bo, Binny Mike, Banana, Fanna, Fo, Finny Mike, Fee, Fi, Mo, Mini Mike. Grinny Mike, Trick or treat, Bo, bigger treat, Banana, Fanna, Fo, figure treat, Fee, Fi, Mo, Mig, or treat. Trig or treat, the name game. Woo! Thank you both for those resubs. And we have the messages from Grinny is, sing to me the song of my people, Trooper. Also, hi, I love you, and I hope you're doing well. I love you too, Grinny. And by the way, if people do not know, Grinny Mike is also Grinny Mike because one of the very first video games I streamed was Inquisition. Dragon Age Inquisition, but one of the other first games I streamed after that was this one called Who is Mike, a little visual novel. And I will never forget that because it was awesome. And Grinny was there. And it was really good. That's what I want to say. Yes. See, Polygeek says, I think there's an interesting and icky process of co-option of counterculture into the mainstream culture that also echoes that. Yes. The idea of designer house punkwear that sort of serves to neuter its power at 100% Polygeek. Yes, I agree with you. See, Gramscian hegemony, maybe in as much as I barely understand it. Yes, that's exactly the thing. Also, I'm gonna allow this. Artie says, Pretty Mike. Yeah, and this is in this case, they really meant sexy or slutty, as she dresses fairly feminine, but not in a sense. Oh, absolutely, yeah. Oh, no, Polygeek, never apologize for going cultural studies. Never, ever do that. Don't ever apologize. That is my life. That is my life, and I love it. One of the things I think is also interesting about this, Grinny says, oh my goodness, Trooper, the fact that you actually remember that makes my heart so very happy. Of course, I will never forget that. one of the things I think about is there's a book called The Conquest of Cool, I think, and I think it was about the 1960s. The book, it's about the boomers, and it's about the ways in which being countercultural became the hegemony. It became, and again, it really depends on where you're from, but it was talking about the ways in which American culture has often had uh, an idea of itself as rebellious, right? Which I was about to say, you know where you are, right? Yes, right. This idea that that it has been part of American identity from often from the very beginning that we are rebels, that this is what we are, like we're the rebels. We had the revolution. So that there's this long-standing stream within American culture where in the mainstream likes to imagine itself as not the mainstream, right? That it is that when our self-identity is as of the rebels, then that allows us to it allows for some very questionable things. Uh, Green's not going to like, oh, lurk. I'm unique, just like everyone else. So here's a really fun story I will say right before we start. So in the 1928, hold on, I can tell you which year it was. Hold on. Was it this one? It was one of the Parisian World Expos. Paris World. I think it was the one with Josephine Baker, where she was on the cover of their advertisements. What year was that? Oh, hey, guess what? The Theatre Champs-Élysées is going to dedicate its entire 1925-26 season to Josephine Baker to honor her 100th year anniversary debut in Paris. That's cool. But what year was it? I really feel like it was maybe 1930, 20. It was like either 28, 30, 32. It was right around there. It was like right around that moment when, what year was it? It was like, it was somewhere between like 28 and 32. It was probably 28. It was probably 28. I'm guessing. Oh man, hold on. I know this is just one of those things that I want to vanity. Some of these things I'm not easily. Hold on. Josephine Baker, World Expo Paris poster. That might do it for me. Let's see. It's a very famous poster that if you know it, you know it. It's a really famous image because she was the image. They used her image on the for the World Expo. Mm, 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 mm. Oh golly. Look, you're just gonna have to take my word for it. It was like it's probably 28, but it might have been 1930. Mm, mm, mm. Anyhow, let me just tell you the actual point because this is the interesting part. This is the interesting point. It's the banana skirt. She's on the banana skirt. It's like a drawing of her. Um, it's like it's a pretty famous one, right? It's the banana skirt one. So anyhow, so here's the thing. Oh, wait. I know what the search word is. I think what I need is not World Expo. I think it's Colonial Exposition. Colonial Exposition. I think that actually is going to be my keyword. Uh, yes. So it is 1931. Uh, yes. Okay. So here is. It was kind of like a. This is. Oops. It is this one. Here is the. Can I just? I'm gonna just hold on. Let me find the image, and then I will. Here, we have people who speak French. Here you go. Here's a link. So here's the thing. Wiki has Baker performed the Danse Sauvage. Her success coincided with the 25 exposition of arts décoratifs, which gave birth to the term Art Deco term, as well as renewed interest in non-Western art forms, including those of African origin, which Baker would represent, even though she was like from Chicago. Punks, goths, and hipsters and many more groups rebelled the mainstream, and the look was sold to the masses. Rebellion stayed, but the way this show Rebellion changed. Yeah. So, okay. So here's the thing. This is like so fascinating and it's like so American, right? So the colonial exposition of 1931, all the big colonial powers were invited to come to the colonial exposition and um, make dioramas of their colonized people, right? So they had like France was there and they would have like dioramas of like French Indochina, of all the places they had colonized. And what they would do for these big dioramas is they'd put on, they were basically like human zoos, is what they were, right? So, like, you go to like Tahiti village or Egypt village, or right. So you like go to the Egypt the pavilion where like England would have like they brought in people from Egypt and they would have them wearing these costumes and set them up in this like it was pretty gross in this like sort of set, and people would like walk through and be like, oh look, Egyptians, oh look, Tahitians, oh look, wherever, right, all the colonized peoples, they put these dioramas up with, you know, as it were. And so here's what this is like, so this says so much about American identity, right? Yeah, like Epcot, but with the side hustling of racism and power. Yes. And so to think about like what America was like, so America was also invited to this colonial exposition. They're like, oh, hey, fellow colonial power, come and join the exposition. And do you know what the United States did? The United States, when invited to make these dioramas of our colonial holdings as part of the colonial exposition, being invited, I think, was supposed to be a sign of respect, like, oh, hey, look, you're a fellow colonizer. Good for you. Come hang out with us in the colonizer table. You know what we did? You know what we did? Did we have like a diorama of the Philippines, of uh, Puerto Rico, of all the places that we had colonized? No. They, the United States exhibition was like of Lincoln's log cabin, and they basically presented themselves as the colonized, right? So that it was like, we are Hawaii. Yeah. We were the, I feel, although I feel like Lone Coup, I feel like Hawaii doesn't really count as, I mean, I feel like it was more just like theft, just like straight up, like we just, the banana company just went in and just took it, forced a coup. And like, it just felt like a little bit, like it was like a little bit abrupt, you know? Yeah, no, so they basically framed themselves as the colonized. Like, we are the colonized and we threw off the shackles of colonization of the colonizers who are England. And so when we were invited to go and put on our colonial exposition, like our little things, we just made ourselves the victims of colonization, and we did not admit that we had any colony. It's just what is what we did. Yeah, maybe there's no, I mean, it was just like, it was just being, it was like a company just stole it, you know? It was just it was just theft. I mean, we can say that all colonization is that, but I feel like it was just pretty egregious, you know? Polygeek, so repositioning rebellion as othering colonial power while simultaneously erasing indigenous and other victims of colonialism. Yes, right. And so I think that because there is an American self-ideal where Johnny Reb, we're the rebels, this sort of idea of ourselves as the rebels, as the colonized, as the put upon, does not allow us to see when we are ourselves the colonizer or when we are ourselves the oppressor. And so I think that, you know, this was in some like Conquest of Cool, some other books, that because our self-identity is as of the rebel, that we basically just continuously co-opt rebellion and make it not rebellious, right? Because the people in power have to imagine themselves in this form because it's part of our identity as being the rebel. But so then we basically continuously co-opt any forms of rebellion and make it no longer rebellious because it becomes part of like the national identity. Yeah, we rebelled, so we're not like those people, the colonial British, even though we were the same people up until we decided that we shouldn't be. Yeah, we don't colonize, we bring freedom. Yeah, and and I think there's something really interesting about this, because this is part of something that I've always been really interested in terms of sort of cultural theory. Most such as like, back from shopping, I had an experience of how privileged cars are in comparison to bicycles. I hope you didn't get, I hope you're safe. Yeah? Milselch, I hope you're safe, because that sounds like a story that where somebody tried to hit you, is what that sounds like, and I'm a little worried about you. Let me know you're safe. Um, so one of the things I've always been, okay, you're fine? Okay, good. one of the things I've always been really fascinated by ever since I was younger was, and it's one of the things, one of the reasons why I did transatlantic popular music from 1890 to 1945 as my special field during my PhD, was because I'm really interested in the relationship between the new world and the old world in terms of what they want from each other. And Unkrautvergehen, a 12-year-old was recently convicted as an adult of particular homicide for hitting an old man on a bike. Oh no. Oh no. That kid's. Oh. Um, so when I was so here's the thing I think about a lot, right? I think about this relationship between the new world and the old world because so when I was a kid, right, I really loved The Avengers, the British show. Watched it a lot. And I thought it was great. And there's this very famous saying that the showrunner, the producer had when the show got picked up for the American audience in season 4. Then the American broadcasters demanded that the show 1964 demanded the show be in color and use film and make these changes like in terms of production so that it could air on American TV. And the British did all of that, which was really expensive. And the showrunner said, okay, so we need to make sure that we keep doing well in the United States for money purposes. So the way that we're going to become popular with the Americans is be the most British we can be. Like we have to be like hyper British for the Americans. And that means no people of color on screen, no police officers, no bathrooms. Those are like the 3 rules that they had for season 5 and 6. And I always thought that was like disturbing and weird. And I remember watching EastEnders right when I was in school. And EastEnders was a British soap. We ended up getting it on PBS. And it was very, like, EastEnders is very ethnically diverse. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting because I have never seen British media with a lot of people of color in it. Because this is the 80s, right? Where we're getting so much British prestige television, all the and film, like all the Merchant Ivory films, a lot of costume dramas, and there were never any people of color, but it's all costumes and castles and all of this stuff, right? That's all coming over to the US and getting Oscars, right? All these Oscar bait movies. And I remember thinking, well, wait a minute. So if there are all sorts of people of color, how come in the UK, which there are, how come we're not getting that media in the US? That's weird, right? And then join the army, I go to Germany, and when I get to Germany, my German friends, hello, my German friends would go on and on about how the United States has no culture. We have no food culture. We have no culture. And I was like, of course we have food culture. Like, no, you don't. You only have like McDonald's. Like, we have way more than McDonald's. Why are you only eating McDonald's, right? And I was kind of like slightly low-key irritated that, they only sort of took our trashiest stuff and then we're like, oh, you guys are so trashy. And then when I was looking at the American TV that they got, which by the way, they watched a lot of American TV, but it was our trashiest stuff. And it was also our films. It was our trashiest films. And when I got to Germany, what I learned, this is a big surprise to me, is that Germany also has trashy TV and films. But I would not have known that because we never imported German trashy TV or British trashy TV for the most part. Like, Europe also has trashy stuff, but we never imported it. And they almost exclusively imported our trashiest stuff. And so what ended up happening was this, what I realized while I was living there was that there's this really interesting relationship between the old world and the new world, where the new world is racial diversity and rebellion for the old world, right? And this was like a thing, this is a thing going back to the 19 teens and 20s, where like young Europeans would adopt New World. They would say American, but that also meant like North and South America, like American jazz, American ragtime, American rebellion as a way to rebel against their parents, right? So they would adopt this kind of like these sort of ideas of the rebellious America as a way to push back against Europe, which meant that we had to be the rebellious America, right? But at the same time, in the reverse, we were really invested also, and both sides are invested in the same story, right? In Europe as like racially pure and old and high class and somehow ancient. And so we would project onto Europe a kind of a racial homogeneity, which has never been true of Europe, ever, right? And it would be all, and like, there just like wouldn't be working class people. It would be all this kind of like Jane Austen, King Arthur sort of fantasy of Europe, right? Like and you would see it in the kind of films that they would export to us and that we would import, that we would look at. And the thing is, both countries were invested in these, like both sides were invested in these stories of each other. And so I've been very interested in the ways in which the old world and the new world have these sorts of functions for each other that involve making fictional ideas of both the old world and the new world that both the old world and the new world then consume. And in different ways, right? Like you can both fetishize and condemn both the old world and the new world for the same sort of fantasy that you are projecting upon them, and that you also then self-project outwards, right? It's like it's not just that the old world was projecting this onto us, we were also projecting it outwards as well, and vice versa. So I was just generally speaking, very interested in that particular kind of relationship. Yeah. Um, yes. Mustache is like, I knew McDonald's. Yeah. Vola says, I'm shocked they didn't ask the British people to speak English, US version, rather than demand Mary Poppins. Hello, Mary Poppins. Yeah, and Polygeek's like, interesting, because during World War II, I believe the Brits had to give out information telling people, hey, don't talk to the Americans about people of color because they have weird attitudes about race, and they're our allies, and we don't want to piss them off by telling them black people are equal kind of messaging. Yes, and I have a story about that, Polygeek. Mulesoch says, also these negative American stereotypes were enforced back in the day. Old scholars, people, absolutely. But now I know Americans have no culture. Just a joke. Love you guys. Polygeek's like, ooh, if this new world was projecting that old traditionalist culture, is that also tied to anti-intellectualism movements? Yes, that seems to be more prevalent in the world. Yes, absolutely, right? Yes, absolutely. And something that's really interesting about like Americans are so racist. The Americans are so racist is such a really great example, because there's a way in which America is framed as like the multi-ethnic place, but also super racist, where in Europe, of course, has no people of color and they're not racist, except that that's just not true, right? Like there were black people in England before there were Anglo-Saxons in England, because Romans brought black people to England, the British Isles. And there have always been people of color. I mean, like the trade route, right? You know what I mean? Like Marco Polo, the whole thing. Like there's always been diversity. Also, there was a time when people thought of Italians and French people as different races anyway. Like it has always been diverse. It has never been this kind of monoracial thing. But one of the things that's super interesting about this is that framing the United States as racist allows Europe to not think of itself as racist. And I think one of the best examples of this would be the 1960s in the UK, where, but this goes back to World War II as well, right? So if you're talking about like how, oh, we have to be careful because the Americans are super racist, World War II, there have been race riots in the UK going back. There were race riots in the 1920s because UK, as it turns out, do not treat people of color very well in England, right? Like there have been people of color there that were not treated particularly well, especially, I mean, this is like, Liverpool is a major slave port, right? Like a slave trading port. There has been racism in the UK for a very long time against a whole bunch of people, including Irish people. And when you say, oh, the Americans are so racist, but we don't have those problems here, it's a way, right? Like there's a, right? He's like, oh, Europeans are most definitely racist. See particularly the treatment of Roma, Sinti, Jewish people, of course, etc. It's fascinating how casual normalized that was too. Oh my gosh, I've got a thing to tell you about that too. So one of the things I think is really fascinating is that in the 1960s, right, there were all these like British bands who were like in love with black music. And by black music, I mean black American music specifically. And black American music that they thought was like dirty, raw, and sexy. And they didn't like black British music, right? So this is where you can get somebody like Eric Clapton, who loves black people and the blues, and people are like, oh, he knows how to do blues better than black people. And it was so great about Eric Clapton is people said this, I did not. What was so great about Eric Clapton is he brought blues back to black people in America because they'd forgotten it or whatever. But he also then would go up on stage and say that, you know, keep Britain white, and we should vote for like the neo-Nazi Enoch Powell, and we need to get rid of all the immigrants, right? You know what I mean? Like there's a way in which really loving black American culture when you're white British allowed you to ignore the fact that they're black British people, right? And the 1960s, the same time that all of those British blues bands, the Stones, Led Zeppelin, the Who, the Animals, all of that stuff, right? They were all like so into black culture. Do you know what was also happening in 1964? Reggae, right? This is ska, right? This is the moment when Jamaica is doing all like there's all this black British music that's happening there in Brixton, right? In the UK. Nope. And the Foundations or a R&B group, Build Me Up, Buttercup, right? That one, right? They had to pretend like they're British. They had to pretend like they're American to get any success in the UK, right? Like and this is actually, and the thing is, this actually hasn't stopped. Idris Elba could not get anywhere in the US. In the UK, he's a black British actor, right? He couldn't get anywhere, so he came to the United States. He got popular in the United States, and then he went back to the UK, and they would start getting these auditions. He would start getting booked in parts, and the people there were like, you have such a really good British accent. And he's like, actually, I'm British. And they're like, oh, right. So there's a way in which a lot of you had a lot of mainstream British society that were really cool with black Americans, but not black British people, right? Um, and at the same time, once we hit the 1960s is when we got rid of basically all of our black people in rock and roll. We just like ejected them. And it became very difficult for black people to be in rock and roll anymore. They just basically got pushed out. And you would say, oh yeah, but Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix was not popular until basically Jimi Hendrix became popular as part of the British invasion. He was going nowhere in the United States, so he went to England, where they were like, oh, Jimi Hendrix, he's a black American, how exciting. And they fetishized him. But he was able, after he got popular in the United Kingdom, he was able to come back to the United States as part of the British invasion, and then we liked him, but we did not like him before, right? Like, so there's this very clear, very interesting, complicated relationship between the old world and the new world in terms of what function we serve for each other. And I just find that fascinating, because it plays itself out in culture in so many different ways. It's so interesting. Yeah. Muselch says, growing up in Munich in the 1980s, there were not many black people there at the time. From time to time, I saw black American soldiers, but that's about it. That changed in the 90s. Our racism was against Turkish people. I would say that's true. What we Bavarians found funny was black people in lederhosen. Was that racist? I guess it was, but I let you be the judge. Hey, I looked great in lederhosen, by the way. Polygeek. So realized people can be made safe by othering them as American, so that their success doesn't threaten that. Dissonance inherent with the we're not racist perspectives, yes, right? But also, so like one of these examples, which I thought was really fascinating, is that there is this history of adopting black Americans and treating them very well while not treating your own people very well. That is pretty consistent in Europe. So for example, the French loved Josephine Baker. And Josephine Baker was like, oh, I think I'll stay here because I'm not treated very poorly. But you know who was treated poorly? Black French people, right? So the French love Josephine Baker. They also love Jesse Norman. But black French people were treated very badly. And they're black, I mean, like, they're black French people for a very long time in France, right? Like Alexandre Dumas, through Musketeers, he's black. His father was black and a great general. Marie Antoinette had a court composer who was black. I mean, I'm just saying there have been black people in Europe for a very long time, but it is easier, right, in certain ways to be able to show like we're so much more enlightened than the Americans because we treat these black Americans very well, but there are usually also some other people of color there who are not being treated well, who are not Americans, right? So that's like and when I was in Germany, right, I remember, so Muselch talks about how like there's racism against Turkish people, but what's so fascinating, Muselch, is that in the 70s, Turkish people were identifying as black, just in the same way that like in the 70s, 80s, Turkish people in Germany, Indians, Punjabis were also identifying as black. Black was like a political identity actually for a bit in the 70s. And there are a bunch of people who we wouldn't think of as black now who are identifying as black then because they were being racialized and treated very poorly. Anyhow, but I remember when I was in Germany, everybody treated me so well. They also fetishized me in ways which were a little bit uncool, but they treated me very well, but they did not treat Africans very well. And it became very clear to me, like, I was like, oh, I see. I see. I did not see, but now I see, right? Like, and I started realizing that like Africans would try to dress like an American. That is when I found out that I dressed like an American. I did not realize that I dressed like an American, but I was taught that I did, and then I figured out how to dress like a German, and then people thought I was Afro-German, but because I was not dressing like an American, yeah. So and it was like these kind of like really interesting ways in which, um, right, interesting ways in which we project and perform things for each other in these really complicated ways. Yeah. America was fashionable in the 80s and 90s. You know, Melissa, it was fashionable, but and then also, but I had a lot of friends who like hated America, but in that performative way where they both loved it and hated it because they were like cool rebels. It was complicated, right? Like they were like, oh yeah. But of course, you know, because in the 80s, of course, we were putting Pershing missiles in Germany and like nuclear war. Like, you know how it is. Um, yeah. Polygeek says, yeah, I think the French also did do it with their soccer players. Yes. They're the safe black, brown French people told up as heroes. Absolutely. Um, yeah. You also have to learn not to do the American lean. Do you want to know, by the way, all you need to do is not dress like American. Are you ready? Wear a belt and don't wear sneakers. That was it. All I had to do was wear a belt and then not wear sneakers. And people thought did not think I was American. It's wild. Wild. Uh, the story so far. Aaliyah's search for the roboticist, Janiki Renba, has ended at the wreckage of his ship. Renba was looking for the Vault, an ancient observatory he believed to hold the only hope of preventing a darkness from overtaking the nebula. The roboticist's search began with a telescope-like device from a ship buried deep on a moon near Albereth. A relic from a vault, perhaps? Meanwhile, Aaliyah has encountered a long-lost recording in a graveyard. It was made at a place called the Withering Place. 96 minutes later. But, like, started it. It was complicated. History is, once you look more closely, yeah. Well, Irish and Italians weren't white enough back in the day, and Finns were labeled as Asians. Well, I mean, the thing is, right? Here's the thing. Race is a social construct, right? And also, look, there weren't white people until, like, white people didn't really exist until fairly recently. And by that, I mean, like, what? 18th century, I guess, is when we started having white people. Yeah, I guess that's about when we started having white people, was the 18th century, I guess. Because before, we had French people. And, like, people thought of different nationalities as different races, right? And they didn't think of English people and Irish people as the same race. They didn't think of French people and Finns as the same race. And the Orient, like I was reading these interviews with people from the 1920s and they're like, oh yeah, Romania, that's totally the Orient. That guy was from Romania and he was so Oriental. And you're like, Romania? Oh, okay, I guess, right? Like our idea of where these boundaries were and what these things were has just changed radically over time, based on, and I suppose it was really, I mean, I suppose it started a little bit earlier than the 18th century, but right? I mean, there's a really interesting op-ed. Germans, Bavarians are, well, but Lohnku, this is the thing, like, that's the thing, right? They are different ethnic groups, right? The Bavarians are the Baobadens and the Germans are the Teutonen, right? They're different Germanic tribes, and there was a time when we were just not seen as the same at all. Yeah, Melissa says, yeah, we Germans have an interesting relationship with the French. And it's just one of those things, right, where I think about how, like, our current concepts of race were just not the ones that people even had in the 1920s. Yeah, like we have these ideas, but then of course these ideas of race changes all the time depending on where and when you're at. But there was this, I mean, Mediterraneans were just not racialized as white for a really long time, right? And there are these very famous drawings from the late 1800s, 1890s, from the Scientific American, scientific racism. If you go look up scientific racism, you will find this drawing, and it's a drawing of on the one end, like the, what do they call it? The Anglo-Saxon, I think. And then on the other end is like the Negro, and in the middle is the Irish. And it shows it, the whole part of the art, the whole point of the article was to point out that the Irish people are actually black. And by that, they do not mean that metaphorically. They were trying to, this article is making the case that Irish people are actually African and they're actually black, which is why it's okay to be racist against them, I guess. It used phrenology, but they're like, look at their nose. Like it was a whole bunch of ridiculousness, really, to sort of prove that somehow Irish people were actually just African. And, you know what I'm saying to you? Like, you're like, okay, well, I guess that's weird. What are you doing? You know what I mean? So like, we had really weird ideas about race that are different from our current weird ideas about race. Not that saying that we don't have weird ideas, we do, but we are estranged. But here's why I think this is important to know for me. Okay. If you want to know what my book is about, because I'm writing my book on transgender vocality, but really, it's been really slow going. I've not got enough writing on it, but I've been doing a lot of thinking, and it's really important because there's this thing that I'm working on. There's this thing that I've been working on, I think, for a really long time, that is in many ways what I want this book to do, which is not what the book says it's doing. It's this other thing. And I'm still working on the language that I want to use for it. Hold on, I've got to call here because I've got to tell you. So there is some cultural theory that I want to do, some critical theory that I want to do in this book, and it's something I've been working on my whole life. The book, which is about transgender vocality across the century, I'm trying to figure out, it's this thing that I've been calling it historical empathy, but that's not really right. And I was like, maybe contextual empathy, but that's not really right. And I'm trying to really get to what I'm talking about in terms of just the term, what I want to call it. But so double consciousness is close, but it's also not exactly right. One of the things I think is really great about history or things like this. Okay, so here's what I want to tell you. So, Milsich is like, I feel like today American racism is why more openly practiced, for lack of a better word, while Western European racism is practiced more subtle. Sometimes, now I remember that story, and now I remember the story that I was going to tell you. Milsich, you might think that, except I was horrified by the things that people were saying in Europe when I was there. When I moved to Europe, I was in Germany from 92 to 97. And I was horrified by some of the things that people were saying that we Americans would just not say, at least not at the time. And some of those things also seemed to be... So McDonald's in Germany has these, at least at the time, I don't know if they still do, have these specialized weeks. They had like Mexican week and Japanese week and Chinese week. It was just Chinese week. Mexican week, Chinese week, French week, American week. Actually, it was like a month. It's like American month. And they would have a special menu for that month where they would have different food-ish. So like during French month or French weeks, they had the McChicken cordon bleu, and you could get like fried camembert with preiselbeer. What are preiselbeer? I don't think they're cranberries. Maybe they are cranberries. Preiselbeeren. I don't think Preiselbeer are... I don't actually think they are cranberries. I think they... So... Preiselbeeren are what? Oh, lingonberries is what they are. There you go. They're lingonberries. So, you know, and then they had like Chinese week where you would get like a teriyaki McRib, and they had some other things like the egg rolls, and then like Mexican week had like taco rolls. Anyway, the point is, I think Chinese week was the first one that I saw, and it was like the advertising for Chinese Week was bad. I was just like super racist. It was like all yellow face. It was like the most racist Chinese caricatures that you have ever seen. And I was like, yo, friends of mine, what is that? What is that? You cannot do that. What is that? And they were like, what's the big deal? And I was like, that's really racist though. And they were like, I mean, this is just kind of how we are in Europe. And yeah, you know those weeks, yeah. And the thing is, one of the things I noticed while I was there was that, so I was there from 92 to 97, right? And there were some racist things that were happening in East Germany, especially like some neo-Nazi youth in East Germany burned down an asylum, an Asylantenheim, like a refugee center, refugee home, refugee housing in Solingen, and just killed a bunch of women. They killed a bunch of people in this fire. And all of Europe just started attacking Germany this way. And I remember being there in Germany, and Angelina Mussolini, you know, the granddaughter of Mussolini, who was in the Italian parliament, was like, oh, you Germans are Nazis. And like all Belgium was doing it, like all these countries, their neo-Nazis were just like, oh, you Germans are just all Nazis. And I was but you're all like, you're Le Pen, and you're you're all fascist, right? So all these like non-German countries we're talking about the relationship, what two countries want from each other, right? So there was this way in which Austria was doing it too, by the way. Germany was being framed as the Nazi country so that they could be the not Nazi countries, even though there were a lot of neo-Nazis in those countries and they were running around doing Nazi things, right? They were like attacking Jewish cemeteries, and they were attacking people and Turkish people. And like, there was a lot of neo-Nazis all across Europe, but it became convenient to sort of project all of Nazism onto Germany, the now newly reunified Germany, so you could ignore the neo-Nazism in your own country. And Lunke was like, the horror was that the bystander was crowd cheering. Yeah, but you know what? Where I was at, in conservative little Augsburg, there was a massive protest, and all these people marched through. I remember I was part of the march. People were marching through in protest of that. And I remember they had these signs saying like, hey, you know, immigrants, don't leave. Like, we want you here, not neo-Nazis, right? Like, so like there are people who were standing up and doing stuff. And Polygeek says, I wonder if it's more of a matter of it's seen as more subtle because it remains more normalized. I think that's what it is. And I remember this moment. It was during the UEFA Cup of like 1990 something or other, and it was Germany versus UK for the UEFA Cup soccer. And they were getting to the final, and I remember the British newspapers in their headlines put Hitler mustaches on the German national team, like Jürgen Klinsmann and Lothar Matthäus, they put like Hitler mustaches on them. And they're like, Achtung, you Krauts, we're going to go and blitzkrieg on you. And I was like, oh my goodness, you cannot put that on your newspaper. That is really inappropriate and offensive. It was the Sun, right? Yeah, it was. And I remember thinking, there is no way you could do that in the United States. That is really inappropriate. And there was just some sort of, like, they just did a lot more really racist stereotypes, and like, they just did things that like were just not really appropriate, and they just didn't think it was a problem. And I was like, don't you think this is a problem? And they're like, nah, it just kind of is how it is. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, but I don't think you should be putting Nazi mustaches on like German soccer play. Like, ooh, like it was just like, it wasn't cool. I was like, oh, Germany, England soccer was war. It was war in the press. It was like really inappropriate. I was like, oh, I don't feel comfortable with this at all. This is terrible. Yeah. The British tabloids going apeshit, whatever, it's Germany versus England, is a time-honored tradition that persists to this day. But here's the thing, it's Schmelzer. It's not okay. Like, I don't know how else to say it. It's not appropriate. That's not cool. It's not cool. It's not cool. I know that like it's just what people are doing over there, but that's not cool. It's not cool. I just, you know what I mean? Like it's not cool. Uh, ooh, it's not appropriate. I learned about soccer scandal from Football Manager Plays. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm. I actually just don't. I really don't feel comfortable with this at all. I mean, look, if you don't, I mean, to be that person, did we not learn anything from World War I? The whole reason why World War II happened was because the Allies decided they thought it'd be really cool to punish Germany in like a overbearing way, right? Treaty of Versailles and all that. Like retribution that way is not going to. It's soccer. That is a whole different world. I don't think ethno-nationalism and stereotyping is okay just because it's soccer. Right? Like, just don't think it's okay. Because here's the thing, sports are often used for, it's better. I'm glad that it's better. I am glad that it's better. Because you think, I hope so, because it's not okay to treat people that way. Like, I just don't think it's okay to treat people that way. And look, I do admit that I am a little defensive of my Germans. And I think it was partly because I saw Germany being used as like a projection punching bag. And like all these countries that were also Nazi countries were just like, yeah, not us. Like, can I tell you a story? As just an example, I had a friend of mine who was Austrian. And she was very proud of being Austrian. She was Austrian. And she would just like, she was from Stuttgart, I think. And I remember she would talk about like how Germans are genetically predisposed to be fascist, not like Austrians. And she would say, you know, Hitler was German, but like Mozart was Austrian. And that's the difference between like Austrians and Germans, is that like Hitler was German and the Germans are so fascist and they're so Nazi, but she's Austrian, which is like, you know, art and Mozart and all that business. It wasn't just because of the retribution Germany, but that was a major factor. And it was certainly a major propaganda factor, right? It wasn't the only factor, but it was a very, very important motivating, especially propaganda factor. But here's the thing, right? The Mozart house is in Augsburg. Yeah, right. Mozart's like, yeah, Hitler was Austrian, right? And the Mozart family is from Augsburg, Germany. They're Bavarian, right? So what? So anyway, Italy felt left out of the spoils of World War I, and that led to the rise of fascism. It did. And so I was like, one day I was like, so hey, friend of mine, you're Austrian, right? And she was like, yes, I'm Austrian. And I was like, so I know that you grew up in Stuttgart. So where in Austria were you born? And she was like, oh, I wasn't born in Austria. I was like, I was born in Stuttgart. And I was like, oh, okay. So where in Austria were your parents born? Like, oh no, they were born in Stuttgart too. And I was like, it was her grandparents who were born in Austria. And this was when I was confronted with a difference between Americans and Europeans, right? Because Germany, you don't get German citizenship for being born in Germany. You have to be ancestrally German, I guess, right? So she was, from an American point of view, she's German. Like, for me as an American, she's a third generation Austrian German, right? She has grown up in Germany. Her parents grew up in Germany. She's German, right? That is the American perspective on that sort of thing. But of course, for her, she was not in any way German. She was Austrian. That made her better, I guess, and less fascist. And I was like, I don't know what you're doing, but this is gross. Like, you know what I mean? So there's just like these kind of perspective differences that, yeah. But I will note that this is, we have these very different ideas of citizenship, nationality, national character, and, you know, when you are, Yeah. And by the way, our robot friend is missing, and we have to see if we can find a robot friend. Yeah, I have mixed nationality on my passport because my great-grandmother was German. Very hard to get rid of. This mulch in a frayed building. But do we want to find her friend? Mm-hmm. Meals such as, there's a village on the German-Dutch border. The village is cut in half by the border. Normally, no problem. Only when the Germans and Dutch soccer teams play against each other, then you have a brawl there. It's tradition. Yeah. 6 sticks probably broke their toe. You know, but I will tell you, this is the thing I will say. Have I played soccer? I have. Have I played sports? I have. Do I enjoy playing sports? I do. But what I do not feel comfortable with is the fact that sports are used as a way to stoke ethno-nationalism, and I don't like that. Like, one of the very first baseball games that I went to was Giants versus Dodgers, which was like LA versus San Francisco, which they have a rivalry, and it was my very first baseball game live. And when I was there with my dad, they got into fistfights. There were brawls. They saw that, like, oh, you're a Dodger fan. People like started punching each other, and that is not healthy. And I do understand, right, that it is convenient to whip people up to that level of fervor so they will commit violence on your behalf. But I don't think it's good, actually. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't think it's good. And it's one of the things that makes me feel very uncomfortable about sports is the way that it is used as a stand-in for, like, nationalism or, tribalism. And I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like that, right? It makes me unhappy. I think it's good to be proud of where you're coming from. But so this is Adorno, right? Theodore Adorno, the cultural critic. After he, Frankfurt School, German Jewish, right? Ultras have ruined the vibe of football and stuff. They have, right? Because you can co-opt that really easily. But he had to leave Germany because of Hitler, and he came to the United States. And when he came to the United States, he's like, oh, they're also pretty racist here too. So he wanted to go and do a study with some sociologists from Stanford, I think it was, about like what was the root of anti-Semitism. But in the process, he became much larger. And he made this argument in the book, The Authoritarian Complex, that he saw two types of personalities, like what he called, there's probably more than two, but right, he wanted to contrast nationalism and pseudo-nationalism, or nationalism and patriotism. And for him, the difference was that nationalists, that is a process of wherein your group identity, your in-group identity, you can only identify as the in-group at the expense of an out-group. Like, we are good because they are bad, right? We are together because they are threatening us. A person who has a nationalist or an authoritarian personality, their identity is based on always a contrast with an other. And they tend to like wars, but don't want to fight in them. They tend to like hierarchy. And then he contrasts that with like pseudo-nationalists or patriots. And he described that as a process of the identity with the in-group not being in reference to an out-group. So that you can think, my in-group is great, and that not being hinged on there being an out-group that is a problem. And he said that those people, the patriots, are very likely to defend their country in war, but they don't tend to want war. And they don't tend to be as like into hierarchy. And that was really interesting because there was a long-standing fight in the United States over what should be our national anthem. Should it be our current national anthem, or should it be America the Beautiful? I wrote a paper about this at one point in time. I never published it, but one of these days, right? So our current national anthem, "Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light," is a song that asserts American identity through reference to an external other, because that's a war song, right? Like, the war is happening, the flag is still burning, right? And like, rockets red glare, right? The bombs bursting in air, right? Gave proof through the night that the flag was still there, right? And it goes on, right? So it's like, this is it's a war song where an American identity is crystallized in opposition to this threatening other. But the other song that was really very much in contestation for our national anthem was America the Beautiful, which has no reference to an out group at all. It's just like, our mountains are so great and our amber waves of grain and all that business. And the war won out in the end. But that would be like the difference between like nationalism and patriotism, or nationalism and pseudo-nationalism. And I always found that very interesting to think about. Like, what is your national anthem? Is your national anthem, does it posit an other? When you talk about sports, is your sports based on hating someone else? Like, is your identity based on hating someone else, or being threatened by somebody else, or disliking somebody else? Is that what your identity is based on? Is that the only way that you know that you exist? Or is it, do you not reference somebody else at all? Like, what is going on in terms of the function of your identity? Schmelzer says, the Versailles Treaty sure was used to brand the Democratic representatives as traitors. It was, by the nationalists and monarchists, which is especially ironic considering they essentially phoned Hindenburg and the OHL and said, hey, we can't possibly accept these terms. And he told them that they had to because the military was about to break apart any minute, just then to turn around and blame them. Yep. I get angry every time I see that there are still streets named after that rat. Yeah. Oh, yeah. But these are the stories we tell ourselves, right? Patriotism in post-war Germany is also very complicated once you look closer. It really is, especially since, and this is going back to why I was like, felt really bad about all those sort of like, we're going to blitzkrieg on you, Germany, during the World Cup, is that most of my German friends were very ashamed of being German. And the United States is a little bit too ridiculous. Like, we're a little bit too ridiculous. I do not endorse American hypernationalism. But it's not good to be ashamed of who you are. You know what I mean? Like, it's not good to be ashamed of who you are. That's not healthy. And it's not good. And so I was like, oh, I don't like that. I don't want my German friends to be ashamed of being German and to hate being German. That's not good. That's not good. And I don't think that these neighboring countries who have the same problems, who also had Nazi governments in the 1940s, and also participated, I don't think they should be running around feeling like they never did anything wrong. They're just going to go and like attack Germany. That seems convenient for them. I didn't like it. One has to be self-critical, right? But I don't think that shame in that way is actually very useful. I think that like ultra nationalist pride is not great, but I also think that like shame is not great either. Don't think it's healthy. Patriotism, yeah. These are no better. These are no better. So much moisture on this moon. Nothing paper could last. Yeah, I just think it's really, like, it's not good to have people be the sacrificial ones that you're just allowed to go and treat badly. Like, it's never good. The roof must be falling in every time the ground gives way. Lucky the dome is still holding. You know, it's like, yeah. I consider myself to be a patriot. I have sworn an oath to the Constitution Grundgesetz. Yes. Yeah, right. And I think that it's, yes, I think it's important to be able to be a patriot, to feel good about yourself, but not at the expense of others. And I think that, yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't like how nobody else in Europe had any problems with Nazis at all. It was only Germany. And I was like, really? Really Austria? Really France? Really Belgium? Really Italy? Really? Really United States? I mean, how did you get here? Did you hop? Yeah, I just don't like scapegoating people. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of don't think... It's one of the reasons why I get a little bit uncomfortable with, there's something under here. A grooved fragment of wood from a bowsprit. It looks like something from the age of sail? Whoever made this didn't add an inscription on it. This comes from the same source as the dented sextant I found here before, I think. We've got a lot of information on the Age of Sail site now. This should make its location easier to find. Well, if we can find 6, that is. I just don't think it's... I don't think it's healthy to do that to people. And I never... Like, it's one of the... I know it's one to finish my thought. It's one of the reasons I don't feel comfortable with the very easy attacking of the British. Like, oh, all the British are evil. And I'm like, not good. Just that little remark. There's an inscription. Ooh! Hey, everybody. New inscriptions. Like, I don't think it is healthy. I don't think it is good socially, societally. I think it leads to bad things to demonize an entire population of people. And did the British colonize the globe? They did. Britain was not the only colonial power, right? And I think that that kind of... you don't have to go back to World War II. Just look at the reunification. Yes. The Vice mocked attack the Aussies. Yeah, the Vessies attack the Aussies in the same way some attack migrants. Right, no such. And here's the thing. I do not think that it is coincidental that in the 90s when I was living there, the rise of neo-Nazism was happening with young Aussies, right? It was young men from East Germany who ended up embracing neo-Nazism. Why? Well, probably a lot of reasons, one of which was that they got a very different history of World War II in their history books. But also, that reunification wasn't really done. There was a whole vibe of like, we, the West, have won. Oh, you Aussies, you guys are just the worst. And like, you're so backwards. And like, a number of people in East Germany lost rights. You know what I mean? Like, the East Germany had the right to abortion. The West did not. And they lost their social... Like, there's a lot of loss that happened because West Germany just treated East Germany like they won, that West Germany won. Capitalism won, the West won. And so it wasn't really like two equal partners. And like the East was kind of really sort of treated badly in certain ways. And when you're treated badly and you're shamed, like when you're shamed, when you're mocked, when you're treated badly, then sometimes you react. And sometimes people don't react very well to that. And the West ripped off the East. Say it is. That's what happened. They did, right? They really did. It was handled ham-fisted. It was not handled well. There was a real sneering about it. It was not two equal partners coming together, unifying in an equal way. It was kind of messed up. And I'm not excusing it because I don't think you should be a neo-Nazi, but I think it makes sense that if you are young and you're really frustrated with what happened, right? How do you rebel the most? In that context, it was that, right? And it wasn't good. It wasn't good. But you know, and I think about this. How do I say this? Also, Soviets aren't Nazis, right? You know, that's the East felt left out, and for so many reasons, right? Like they couldn't get an Eastern team in the Bundesliga, all sorts of things. They said all this unemployment, like there was, yeah, it wasn't economically. The Stalin was bad, sure, but all Soviets were Stalinists, yeah. Stand, verb, not to move. Yeah, I feel like stand. Yes, stand. Stay. I stand, and this is mountain, others move. In front. In front. I stand in front of you. Serpent. Because we think that this is serpent, and so I think that apostrophe is like of, right? I stand in front of you, serpent. I think that is correct. Yeah. This is a serpent god, maybe. This is a serpent god. Goddess of what, I wonder? Not just snakes, surely. The serpent god. A god of markets and merchants, perhaps? Symbol. Water. Looks like, water with a lot of moss, silt. And so here's the thing about this. I'm just going to say this, right? And I'm saying this in a vague way. But let me see if I can find it. Hold on. It was, there were a bunch of them, and I've got to remember which one was the actual one, which was the actual year. I think it was it 1389? Yeah, I think it was. Yeah? Yes? Yes? No? Yes? Yes. Yes. No? Let me double check. I'm pretty sure it was the Battle of Kosovo from 1389, but it might have been one of the later ones, but I'm pretty... Well, let me double check. Hold on. It might have been 1369. Nope. I'm pretty sure it was 1389. Ooh. Yeah, it could have been 1448. But I actually think it was 1389. Oh, which one? Anyway, the Battle of Kosovo, 1389. The Battle of Kosovo, 1389, was a battle between the Ottoman Turks and the Serbs. And I think that was actually inconclusive, but when Yugoslavia broke apart and everything happened the way it happened, one of the ways that people justified that Serbs in Bosnia justified mass rapes and genocide was the Battle of Kosovo from 1389. You know, we lost to those terrible Ottomans back then, so we are justified in, like, we are punching up, right? We are justified in doing these terrible things now. And that is one of the reasons why I always feel uncomfortable when people want to blame an entire nationality for something in these ways, because those sorts of
Come on to my
stories
house.
are used. Ooh, come on to my house, come on. Come on to my house, come on. Come on to my house, I'm gonna give you candy. Come on to my house, I'm gonna give you everything. Welcome in, Sappy Pie. Welcome in, welcome in. So Sappy and I have played the RPGs together, and Sappy is great, and I think Sappy is awesome. I'm going to go and throw out our raid command, because I always have to, like, actually remind myself what it is. There you go. Boom. Hey, raiders. I'm a streamer. What were you streaming? What were you streaming? How are you, Sappy Pie? How are you? And what have you been doing? What is happening? Tell me all about it. How are you? Hello from the Air Fry or Riot Club. Oh, hey, Sleepy Dwagon Man, I love your hearts. I love those. Oh, I love those hearts. Where did they come from? I want one. Molly Berry. Artist. I'm going to have to open up a tab, because I love that. This is not a pipe. It is not a pipe. Sappy Pie? Thank you. Thank you very much for getting our Magritte reference. I appreciate this very, very much. Sappy, I do. Look, if we cannot have a little bit of postmodern references here, I don't know what we can do. You know what I'm saying? You got turtles? Ooh. No, I want those. Oh, Binding of Isaac. So, you just giving me a thought. Just give me a thought. I need something. Emote. You have just given me a thought. Boom. Thought happened. Wrote it down so I don't forget it. Thank you. Oh, it has been a while. Yay, Sappy Ray. Oh, Peachy Pixel. Hey, everybody. How are you doing? We were talking about nationalism. That's another good one. You know what? I need to make my own a trans pride emote is what I need to do. Oh, Awkwardish Panda. I love Awkwardish Panda. Aww. Yay. Also, we have to just show this. Don't delete the message. I'm gonna have to... No, Polygeek, no, don't worry. We're gonna fix this. How do I do this? I always forget. Is it add reg or is it reg add? Add? Hold on. Polygeek, we're gonna fix this. Add reg Polygeek? Or is it... it's reg add. Thank you. Krellin always remembers, and I always forget. Reg add Polygeek. Boom. You should now be able to post links. Ha. Yeah, so we were just talking about nationalism. And I just like, historically, people have used these kinds of memories of, like, demonization to justify terrible things. And so I always feel a little uncomfortable when we're like, oh yeah, the French, or oh yeah, the English, or oh yeah, the Americans, or oh yeah, the South, or oh yeah, this or that, because it never turns out well. You know what I'm saying? It always ends up being used. That's a kind of a dehumanization process, which then is used to justify. People can use that, right? People who have bad motives can use those narratives to whip up violence. And so, like, there's a person in there, I think. I think that's a person. I think there's a live person in there. Just in case you're already acquainted, Molly Berry's a streamer on Twitch. Ooh, nice. I've just opened a tab. Now, go heat up your dinner. Go heat up your dinner. So good to see you, Safi. I can't wait until we get to play at the table together again. I think also 6 is in there. I'm afraid to walk in there because there's a live person and we haven't seen any... Okay, well, here we go. 6? Is that you? Uh-oh.
At the building's heart was a domed chamber. Every footstep rang like a bell. And the room was large, like it was larger than the walls that held it. Like a whole other moon was contained inside this room.
Metaphorically. 6? Not a live person statue. What are you doing, 6? You left me. I had to. I saw something. It led me here. Again. Again? Indeed, mistress. I know this place, mistress. I have been here many times. Okay. That's not a moon, it's a metaphor. How can you remember anything? You can barely remember Renba waking you up. I do not know, mistress. Memories are a new sensation to me. I do not know how to understand what is in my mind. You're a robot, 6. Either you know something or you don't. I don't think it's that simple. I agree, mistress. In theory. And yet, look, I think that these robots have been kidnapped people. I have some very big concerns. And yet, I remember a king with an iolite crown. His judgments were fair. He was much loved. But his daughters schemed against him. His name was King Lear. Each daughter thought he loved another more. Resentment festered until each killed him in a different way. I think this is just King Lear. Slow poison, a knife in the back. But the youngest daughter's method was the cruelest. She hoppered her father into a crack in the palace stonework. She became queen, but she never found any pleasure in it. She was plagued by her father's voice inside the walls, berating her for her flaws. It makes no sense, mistress. How could I have seen all that? Is there anything else? Yes. I remember a woman, shipwrecked. She lay here on this floor, dressed only in rags. She carved her name into boards torn from her ship, which would never sail again, and she tossed them into the rivers, hoping to be rescued. That's enough, 6. Actually, I don't think it is. This is like listening to a grandmother on Harvest Day. I'm going to say they're dreams. The dreams. Do you dream, 6? I do not believe so, mistress. But how would I know for sure? Yeah, this is a theater. Do you even sleep? Not since I was activated, mistress. But before then, I suppose I was asleep for a long, long time. I have feelings about this, everybody, and these feelings are... This has got to be a temple space. You can feel it. The hush, the quiet. This place must have once held hundreds. I cannot feel anything, mistress, but I do observe a room with a large capacity and meticulous acoustics. An excellent location for singing. Good faith! Listen to the echo. This room was built for that. Okay. So, here's what I'm going to say. I miss Sappy Pie. This may have been a theater rather than a church. Temple. Shout out to Temple of Silence. Look, these people don't know what an auditorium is. I don't know. They grew up in a very weirdly religious space. I don't know. I really believe that 6 is not just a robot. I think that all of our robots were once flesh people, and that their consciousnesses were stolen and placed inside robots, probably against their will. And I think that their memories were erased. Their memories of being an actual person were erased so they could be robots. So I think that maybe this is not artificial intelligence. I think this might actually be just an actual person who's been kidnapped and forced to be a robot and then buried alive for thousands of years. This is what I'm thinking. This is my thoughts. I just feel like this is what we're getting. When you die, your soul gets... Yeah, I think when you die, your soul gets put in a robot. Or if they kill you. And... what if there just is no artificial intelligence in this world? It's all just intelligence, but they want robot slaves, and so they just enslave people for eternity by putting them in robots. What if that's what's happening in this game? It's my current theory. Cyberpunk. Stairs? No. Seating. I've not seen this arrangement in a temple before. I don't think it's a temple. Temple seating is usually more clearly hierarchical, to allow important people to sit closer to their gods. Where are you going, mistress? Why are humans so keen to climb? I mean, it could be a temple. Polygeek says, in fairness, the shape of an auditorium like that and the acoustics would make sense for a temple. It would. Or a place of civic action, decisions as much as a theater. Yes, it's probably a multi-use space. Really any kind of thing where large people come together to focus on a central group of presenters. Maybe it was a classroom. Not in grade school. Not in undergrad. Not in grad school. Okay, so, yeah, so the thing is, I'm trying to think, have I ever taught in a classroom like this? And the answer is yine, actually. No cup holder or place to store donuts. Simple needs improvement. So, because I teach music history, that means sometimes our large lecture halls are also performance spaces. And so I've never actually taught in a place that looks exactly like this, but I have taught in rooms that were almost like this. Usually not as curved, but with a kind of raked, where they would usually, like a place where they might also do orchestra rehearsal, but not a good orchestra rehearsal. So I've taught in places that, in rooms that were almost like this, but I've never taught in one that was really a full-on amphitheater. Krill says, I use auditorium specifically because that can be put into many uses, but all are designed with acoustics in mind. Yes, yes. Polygeek says, academic auditoria do tend to be rectangular and rowed rather than concentric and served. True. And modern theaters, for that matter, yep. But I'm remembering that my undergraduate institution, which kind of doesn't exist anymore, sort of does, sort of doesn't. I went to Mills College, a women's college in Oakland, California, and it actually does have an amphitheater, like a real sort of, we call it the Greek theater. We have a Greek theater, very small. We would have convocations there. It was outdoors. It was very nice. We didn't teach classes there, although I think I actually did have one impromptu lecture there. It was very cool because the building itself, Mills is from 1852, and like a lot of its building was from there to like the 1930s. So there's a lot of like cool old buildings with like sort of WPA sort of architecture. A high school gymnasium can usually act as a Swiss Army structure. Reversible bleachers. I remember those retractable bleachers. I do indeed remember those retractable bleachers. Very much so. And having to pull them out and push them in. And the acoustics were usually bad. What do we have in here? What have we got? See? This is a charred ink chart of the moon, dating from the age of sail. Looks like there's something drawn inside the gap between 3 rivers. Ooh. A rounded... This one is a stained fragment from an even longer source. A rounded outer term brings to mind Greece and antiquity rather than modernity. It does. All right, what do we have here? We have got... okay, this is a complicated one that has some things we don't know. That one there is... this we know is like our... us, we, right? Oh, what else have we got here? Oh, no. This is our, I think. Let's take this back. No, not this. I think this here is our. I feel like we know this one on the far left. I feel like we know some of these, right? Let's put our is in there. What else do we have? We have maybe rivers. Oh, this is some kind of... I feel like we actually know some of these. She said it was drawn between 3 rivers, so river seems obvious. Yeah. Something rivers is our something something. Like, this could be like... We know that circles maybe like all or time, something like that. I just would like to say for the record that I really feel like we know some more of these words than we're being given, and that makes me a little sad. But we'll put in at least what we know, and we might be able to get new words, because I think that we have a better sense. I think we know some of these words more than we're being given, so actually there's a repeated word here. Something of reserves is something of our... So that's not right, it's fine. Mistress, that translation is clearly incorrect. There must be another possibility. I know. We need another word. So that first thing is like a noun, right? The enemy of my enemy. So I do think this is rivers. That I just think that's flow rivers. Winds doesn't make any sense. I think this really feels like hour to me. I really feel like that is true. I realize we could do us. I'm gonna do this. I don't think this is right, but I feel like there are words that we've learned that we can put in here. I really do feel that. I have a better sense of this. It's like the flow, the course, right? This doesn't feel right. Okay, so winds, rivers, our acts. I know that they're... Okay, so let's put winds in here, even though I don't think that's right. I really don't. I don't think that's right. Winds is... I'm going to put in us, but I really feel like that's not right. Don't like it. I just don't think that's right. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't think that's right. Steady rivers, steady travels. I think you just should put the less of the of. The things we have to keep putting them in until they trigger, right? That's the tricky part. Because we have to put stuff in there that will trigger and then it'll give us new information. None of this does not make sense, and that's fine because we're missing a word. It's fine. This is not right. I've done something wrong. I know it. Okay, so I knew it wasn't winds. I told you that. See, I told them that. I told them it wasn't winds. They were not listening to me. All right, rivers. It is rivers. Up, up, down, down, left, right, left, right. So I was putting in our. Let's put in the is. Let's put in us, which I still actually think, be a select start. Okay, so this is, I still think that's our. That makes sense to me, and that's like our life. Like, I think rivers is life. No, look, I'm sorry. This is clearly our life. That's life. So this is like something rivers is something our life. Only the of before rivers and before our. Yeah, maybe. Something of rivers is... Yeah. Yeah. Ooh. Another word confirmed translates as rivers. That's a lot of glyphs, but I think it must say our. Yes. Fill in the ofs because the last time you did that, you have acts in there that was limited. Yes. Okay. The X of rivers is the X of our lives. The circle, shape, temple, song. Shape. So we know that circle is all. That's like a circle with a bunch is all. I think, can we go here for a second? Every. That's not just all, that's every. Every. Okay. Let me go back. I would like to, no, back, continue. Okay, so that was all. Oh, hold on. Now to work out what the other words mean. Yeah. We also have the word book, which has a similar structure, but has the O from all. Could be a song. Yeah, it could be a song. If it's a song, temple doesn't make any sense to me. It can't be temple because we have it doesn't have the holy symbol. What's the writing of a record of all a song. Yeah, let's go with song. Also because a song is a and this is lives. Right, this is lives. Obviously. I think a book was object of thought, maybe yes. The Song of Rivers is Song of Our Lives? Most likely this comes from the same source as the fragment of bowsprit and the dented sextant we found here before. That suggests people commonly frequented both of these two locations. This will make the Age of Sail site easier to locate. Yeah, book could be word something, so song is words every. Could be, yeah. Yeah. I feel really good about our language skills. I just would like to throw that out there. Let's see if there's anything else for us up here before we go to the other side of the wall. So one of the apostrophes clearly about possession of. I think I have to go all the way over here. Now, 6 did say that somebody carved things in the stairs. So I think we should ponder that for a moment. What do we have here? Oh, curtains. I'm afraid of curtains. Okay. Oh, I think there's something back here. Okay. We'll look. No, a doorway. I suppose the priest would materialize from here. Or... Let's see where this goes. They're moving me. I didn't do it.
The far side was open to the wind and the dark.
We cannot finish this way. We've got to go back because we've got to clear out that entire room first. You know what I'm saying to you? I like to be methodical so we don't miss anything, especially in a... Oop! Should get back to 6. I know! Before the robot starts telling another story. Mistress! Perhaps there is no more to see here, mistress? No, there is. I'm not even done yet. I do not wish to stay any longer than necessary. You're not interested in remembering any more? The game only works because the language are ideograms instead of phonemes, yes. I can remember at my leisure, mistress, but there is nothing here to see. That's not true. From within this chamber, I cannot activate the hopper, mistress. Perhaps from the courtyard outside? I might have missed something back here. I'm not even done yet. Fine. You know how, I just have more things to do inside of the chamber. So all I'm saying is I still have things to investigate. Ooh, I know. Okay. All right. I know which way we came. I know where we are. This is the way we came in. Ooh. There we go. So the game tell the game. I know, right? I'm like, game, let me do what I want to do. Don't tell me what to do. You're not the boss of me, game. Well, if 6 can't follow us out here, I guess we can do a little bit of a... It's just that I know... There's another thing out here. It's just that I know that there's an axe. Oh, there's just more stuff in there that we didn't even get to the other side of the stairs. Somebody was working their way through the trees for firewood. Just saying, I know that there's more stuff we haven't seen yet, so 6 needs to just take a chill pill. Oh! By the rivers. Tread lightly, Aaliyah. Yeah, I don't want to fall over and die. I do recognize that. No, none. Okay, a sculpture. A sculpture made of sticks, shoes, a coffee pot, something like. Oh. 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 Oof. Trevor falls over the game. Dun, dun, dun. Game over. Yeah. I was never any good at dancing. Oh, reply. There's no chance this sculpture's lasted hundreds of years. there must have been someone here recently. I'm telling you that. But who would come out here to build sculptures? There's somebody here right now. There's somebody here right now. And you recognize the dancer's pose, don't you, Aaliyah? You should. It's a swirler from Elbereth. Imagine 5 of them holding hands, going in and out and around each other. Pretty good, really. So somebody from Elbereth made this statue. Look, I'm telling you, I just think there's somebody here who's going to jump out in a jump scare and scare us, or murder us, or give us presents and coffee. I don't know. I just feel like... Oh. Renba? Why'd you pull out on us? Who ever come to an own spot to build a sculpture? Every artist ever. I'm surprised there's no graffiti, because that would be hilarious. I have a lot of concerns. Also, okay, we couldn't go this way. All right. Oh! Let's look down, shall we? The entire mountain is tumbling away. Reminds me of what happened to 4. Aaliyah has presided over the death of 5 robots, and once we find out that they're actually also people, that might make her feel some kind of a way. That's all I'm saying. We're going to finish exploring, because I know there's stuff in here, and I don't want to miss it. It would be so cool if we get to the top of the dome. That would be really neat. Romanas eut domus. Yeah, graffiti. I love some good graffiti. And we did find that lone shoe earlier. Romans, everyone should eat donuts. Also, some of this food is, like, look, that's fresh fruit. Fresh fruit. So this is where the half we found came from. Perhaps these grew on the trees? There aren't many trees, and this is a lot of fruit. Is this bread? It's bread. That didn't grow on a tree. This is an ancient site, but it is very clear that somebody has been here recently, and I suspect they might still be here hiding somewhere. Why are they hiding? Why are they not... I had another thought, by the way. Just side note. That person that 6 saw might not have been a real person. It might have been a memory of a person. What if 6 were seeing the memory of someone that they knew? You see what I'm saying? I feel like that is a possibility. Huh, another curtain. Nothing here. Why hang a curtain over a wall? Acoustics. It's baffling. Not confusing, but baffling. Better for the acoustics is what I'm saying. Also, we didn't even look at that statue, so like we have way too much to explore still, obviously. My in time is going to be 1:30. 1:30, so we can get a good 3 hours in. Ooh. It's like the misspelling of Romans Go Home from Mike Pine's Life of Brian. It's like that statue outside of a different goddess. The ancient pantheon had 7 gods, I think? Gods always seem to have one eye. Goddess, but you're made of wood. Painted to look like stone. What am I missing here? It's clearly a rich site, but the curtains hung over the blank walls and the wooden props. It's a theater. All these cheap fakes. It's a theater. Do you not have theaters? Do you not have theaters? Maybe it's like a... Maybe they don't get to have theaters in their crappy world. It's a theater. It's fine. Nobody's listening to us. It's okay. Oh. Some kind of chest. It's beautifully made. Let's look inside. There's a sword in here. Is it a real sword or a prop sword? Very light. Made of wood? Huh. Same as the goddess. It's Made of wood, because it's a theater. And there's an inscription down the middle of the blade. Okay, okay. I'm recognizing some of our pictographs. This one is several words. All right, folks, we have got stuff, and I'm glad about it. I think we've got a question, right? Because I think that's one of our question marks. Ooh, 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 ooh. Okay. Shall. We've got one of our people symbols. Shall. This may not be right, but shall gods? Yeah. We've got one of these things that's like guide. Shall gods guide your compound word? This is not right, but brings not. This is a compound word. Compound word. Oh, this doesn't feel right. Okay, so shall is not right. That's great. So let's go with remember. I don't think that's right, but that's okay. That's okay. Guide. Remember guide. Yourself, perhaps. Brings. This is not completely right. I know this. Remember, guide yourself. Yeah. Something like my may memory. Yes, it's probably like may memory. Guide. Your here. Hold on. Let me take this out. Guide may memory guide your something. That's our verb, right? So may memory guide your, but it's a compound word, it looks like. So I think that's not bring. I think that is, I don't think we actually have the words for that, but let's take acts and put that in there, right? Yeah. I've done something wrong, I know. Okay, remember. Okay. So let's see. It's not remember. May as much as shall would make sense. Yeah, but we can't use shall. So I think we have probably got gods. At least that's the best we've got right now. But that doesn't seem right. That's fine. Let's put acts in there, which don't think it's right, but guide. Then we are going to have God's guide. We have got, I feel like this is probably your, sort of like, I think that's like may. Let's take acts out, because I think it's like may. May God's guide your, oh. I can add my translation for guide to my dictionary now. May God's guide your, and that's may. That's definitely may. Because we have should, right? So it looks like, I think the circle is also time maybe. So this looks like conditionals, right? So like may, should. So should with a question mark is may. May gods guide your compound word. Okay, we've got something with some kind of verb compounded or connected to something that involves movement and a person and more movement. Swing, yeah, I think so. Right, like, yeah. Person with movement, swing, yeah, absolutely. I think that's, yes. Yes, also it's a sword, right? Uh, may gods guide your swing? Oh, but of course, this isn't a temple. This is a theater. That's what we've been telling you. We have been telling you this for quite some time now. We knew it. We here in the Academic Foxhole, we knew this was a theater long before you did. Theater? So my memories are only stories. They seem so real. Must have been good actors. But when was this? Hundreds of years ago? Oh, well, right. It was King Lear. It was King Lear. Six was watching King Lear. For the record, I knew it. Looks like there's nothing in there we can get. It's King Lear. In the original, I hope it was in the original Klingon. That would be nice. I first watched King Lear in 1984 on television. It was a production of King Lear on TV with Laurence Olivier as Lear and Diana Rigg as Regan. And I watched it because Diana Rigg was in it. And that's what Six what oh maybe Six was an actor. Huh. Also, I'm noting that there wasn't anything up here to find, which I think is suspicious. Because maybe Six was an actor. That looks like a ladder. No? Yeah, that's where the bar would be. Yeah, that's probably what I'm missing. The bar. I don't think I can climb up there, so that's fine. So we didn't get any more inscriptions here. I'm going to go back out and go around because we have not exhausted this place, and I know that there's Sanctuary Moon to be more of a 6-5. Let's get off this moon. Then a Macbeth and stuff, yeah. Too many ghosts down here. Wait, what was that? See, this is what... That was no ghost. I heard footsteps, mistress. This is what I'm saying to you. There is somebody here. Sanctuary Moon seemed to be more of a 6-5 rather than a Macbeth. Yeah. That thing didn't move on its own. This is what I'm telling you. No. Evidently, it is made of wood, mistress. Good faith to you. We mean you no harm. There's someone here. Whoever's been here is still here. This is what I've been saying this whole time. Oh. Ooh, maybe they're out of phase with reality. Oh. Murderbot can vouch for the series 19 whole seasons. There is somebody here. I heard you coming in, noisy ghost. You won't eat me, ghost? Camel's teeth. Oh, camel's teeth. Okay, we have to find this person. Stop, come back. It's just a boy. How long has he been here? How long has he been here? Well, we have to find that kid. There's some kid in here, and we've got to find that kid. We're not just... Wait. Before we go find the kid, we have to see if there's anything on the base of the statue. Because games are like that sometimes. You think everything is cool, but then it turns out there's something at the base of the statue and you didn't look. Okay. There's nothing there. We're fine. We can't trust Six as a people catcher. Nope. Six seems to be, questionable. I wonder, was Six a king or actor? Why was Six... Oh. Kid's back. Stay back, ghost. I'm a Dread River pirate army here. So hand over your robot, or I'll run you through. Aren't you, too young to be a pirate? Well, you're too tall to be a ghost. but we'll see if you won't bleed all the same. Take this! Oh, ouch! You little rodent! Put that thing away before you blind me. I know all your tricks, ghost. You'd say anything to get your meal. Oh, hey, this is for you. Hey, you need to... Oh, hey, stop doing that. We're not going to draw my sword. Tell me what you're doing here. I don't want to hit this kid with a stick. Beating you. Every hit will wear you down. Ouch. Stop whacking me with that thing. Does your mother know you're here? We cannot hit this kid with a sword. Mother? No. Have you been living here? I'm dead. You soon will be too. Contact! Hey, by the goddess! You need to stop hitting me. We also need to stall so we can get our health back. I give in. You are vanquished, ghost. Well, aren't you supposed to disappear now? I'm not a ghost. Of course you are. Same as me. You're not a ghost either. You hurt my arm with that stick of yours. I was on Elbereth. There was a story, you see. A story about a cursed word. But how did you get here? Wrong voice for her. We're very far from Elbereth. Died. I spoke the word, and I died. Nope, you hopped. When did you say the word? When did you say the word? I spoke it by the Catkiss Gate on Elbereth. Yep. The gate sent you here? How is that possible? The gate is a hopper, mistress. But this boy traveled a lot further than one would expect from a hopper. Just took me and I found myself here, alone. I haven't seen another person for so long. I hope you're real. We'll get you home. How did you learn the word? Lots of people say they know it. I saw it written. You saw it written? So, how could you say it? No one knows how ancient words are spoken. It wasn't ancient. It was in Elbereth slang, the patois. That's how I could speak it. Where are we? Follow me. Take the sword. Can't leave my blade behind. Oh, that was the wooden sword. I could have kept it. Never one you might need it. I could have brought out my sword, but it's fine. I didn't have to get hit that many times, I don't think. I just thought it might have been a real sword. The word you spoke. It must have told the gate's hopper to send you to this place. So this place was directly connected to Elbereth. And still is. A long-distance hopper? Is that possible? Apparently. But why would anyone connect anywhere to Elbereth? Was ancient Elbereth more important than we realize? Probably. Let me show you the sword I found, Six. Interesting. The wood is not from here, perhaps. Unsurprisingly. And, mistress, it is old. Yeah, but how old? How old is it? Well, everybody, so we found this kid, right? We clearly can't go and see our advisor now. We have to take the kid back. Now, what's your name? Amir? I told you. What's yours? I'm Aaliyah. Are you from Elbereth? I am. I'm Elberathi. Oh. If Lindy were here, Lindy would do her really awesome kid voice for Amir, and it would make me go, oh, like that. So happy we have a... May I activate the hopper now, mistress? We've still more to do here. What's that? I really hope it's not a snake. Of course it ain't. Oh. Huh. And how do you eat? One of our rooms has food in it. I eat that. How does the fruit stay fresh? Well, I don't know. I think someone brings it, but I never saw them. Oh, that's mysterious. That's mysterious. You mean someone is keeping you here? Well, I don't know. I don't think so. Is there anyone else here? No. Or if there is, I didn't see them. I don't know. Our thief buddy ain't buying the kid. Maybe barkeep or mechanic? Yeah, we gotta, I've got a lot of feelings about all this, and they're ominous. I found your fireplace. I didn't realize it was fresh. Well, I don't make fires very often. How do you light a fire? On one of the upper floors, there's a wire in the walls. It sparks. You can catch the spark on a scrap of cloth, a bit of wood. But then you have to get it down again to where the wood is to burn. It's a long way down. I know. I like to pee off here. It takes forever to splash. Uh-huh. You don't worry about falling? Well, I think about it sometimes. But, that's all. Well, we're going to have to climb up there, obviously. But before we do, there is a room we didn't go in. Just, I just want to... Oh. I like the sculpture you built. The dancer? You made it? Yeah. Poor kid. Thank you, 130. Tell you what we'll do. We will check this room. Did you recognize what it was? My sculpture? Huh. Yes, it was a swirler from Elbereth. I used to climb onto the rooftops and watch them as a girl. I love them. So strong, so fast. I wanted to be one until I died. You didn't die, technically. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to set ourselves up for success. So, you're a robot? Evidently. That's a weird response from 6. So this is a rope. But it's 1:30, so we're going to stop right here. Right? Because we've streamed for 3 hours. What's it feel like? I beg your pardon. Answer the child, 6. I have always been a robot. I don't think that's true. Therefore, it feels fine. I don't think it's true that you've always been a robot. I actually just don't think that's true. I think you were a person, maybe an actor, and you were like forced into being a robot against your will, and everything is bad. This is, these are my feelings about this. There was a boy living here. This place had once been connected to Elberth directly. So before we leave, I think that we can look. Do we have any solvable inscriptions? It looks like we don't have any solvable inscriptions, but just gonna say it was so good to get back to this game. And here's the thing, I don't know how long this game is, but it would be really great if I could finish it before I think this is Empress Buried Robots. I really just think that's what that is. It'd be great if I could finish this before I leave. All pilgrims, we know that's together. I'm pretty sure we're good with that one. I think we just need to find a few more words. Follow Star's Light, I'm pretty sure that's exactly what that is. Yeah. I feel good about some of these. I fear stranger. This is related to die. Death. The thing is, that is very similar to this, and death is not. This is a person, and it's not clearly not goddess. I think this is I fear stranger. I feel good about that. This is water goddess blesses. I think that's fire. Could be field. Could be field, but at the moment we're going with fire. Feeling fine. Feeling fine. Emperor protects us all. I do think that that is protect. Could be banished. Could be banished. Hey, hold on a second, will you? So that is double comma mountain lightning bolt, right? And no, where's our banished? Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. I know, but I'm getting out of here. So that was double comma lightning mountain lightning bolt. That's not. Yeah, so I don't. Yeah, I think we're good. I think we're good. So let me tell you, does ancients mean death, or teleportation death like that little kid? It's a good question. So thank you for being here. It's been a while since I played this, and I missed it. It's been a month, and I am glad to get back into it. And I really want to finish. I would like to try to finish this before I move, January 2nd. So we shall see. So let's see, when and where will you find me next? Tomorrow evening at 8 p.m. Eastern on my channel, Laugh Love Lindy's channel, Wandering DM's channel, and also High Shelf Collective's channel. We do think that's plants. It will be Roleplay Reflect. We're in cycle 2 of season 1. We did our character creation the week before last, so this week we'll be doing play. We did our roll, so now we're doing our play. So it's our Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader crew running off to do. Yeah, I actually just think these things are right at the moment. So I'm feeling good about all of that. Yeah, look, I feel good about these. So come and see us. That'll be really good. Good times. It's a little 2 shots, so you can have a good time with us. And then that's Sunday. The week after, what do I have? I've got a bunch of stuff happening offline Monday through Wednesday. Thursday will be no stream. I will not be doing Mutazione on Thursday because I've got a Friendsgiving. But I will be here on Friday for the Gamblers. Friday at 7 p.m. my time for the Gamblers. 7 p.m. Eastern, pardon me. For the Gamblers, where they're going to be, running about on Thebe a little bit more, or Outrimer. And then Saturday will be more Heaven's Vault. And then Sunday will be the second half of our play. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. So, and also, I think we're pretty good with all of that, which means I think I can just exit and then exit, like so. I think that's just how I do it. Good. Boom. So, thank you, everybody. It has been lovely to have you all here. I do adore this game very, very much, and I'm really excited about it. I'm going to go and have food right now. I suppose I'll make a sandwich, I guess. I'll do that, maybe. Anyhow, thank you for being here. You guys all have been lovely, lovely, lovely. I am going to do a raid, though, because it's a Saturday and we can do a raid. Next Saturday, remind me to do a giveaway. That's important. Let's see. Who are we going to raid? We are going to raid Max Rider. We're going to go and raid Max Rider. He's playing Grand Theft Auto, and I thought we could go and just give him a little bit of love. Do not forget our raid command. And you know what? I will catch you on the flip side. Thank you for being here. You all are awesome, and we're going to do more of this, next Saturday. And also, sign up for the, if you're one of the Patrons, we're still in the sign-up period for our Patreons for the Arena. So go and sign up for the Arena, the GURPS Arena for the Streamiversary. And next week, I think on Wednesday, that post will open up for everybody, so then anyone can sign up for the Arena. First come, first serve. First 8 are gonna go. That's what we're doing, everybody. Thank you. I'm glad to be back on a Saturday. Check you all later, everybody. Bye.